Chapter 169. Honorable Xianxia stood alone on the peak of the mountain, facing the lightning tribulation alone. Behind him were only Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu. Chu Kuangren said to Lan Yu, "You should go and help Elder Rian." "Master, can you do it alone?" "They're just a bunch of thieves. I can handle them alone." Lan Yu hesitated for a moment, then nodded and left. Now, only Honorable Xianxia and Chu Kuangren were left on the mountain. "Kuangren, why are you still here?" Honorable Xianxia held the purple star sacred sword in his hand and turned to look at Chu Kuangren. "To protect Honorable Teacher." "Heh, all right then. Watch how Honorable Teacher faces the heavenly tribulation. Perhaps it will be of help to you in the future." Honorable Xianxia laughed. Boom! At this moment, a blue lightning bolt as thick as a bucket fell from the black vortex, and its target was Honorable Xianxia. The first heavenly tribulation had begun. Honorable Xianxia's expression froze. When the lightning bolt was about to reach him, it was deflected by the thundersoother rod beside him. It directly hit the rod, and a large amount of lightning energy was directed to the ground. The first heavenly tribulation had been passed just like that. Honorable Xianxia was a little stunned. "Kuangren, your thundersoother rod is really extraordinary. This heavenly tribulation is too easy for me." "Honorable Teacher, don't be careless. This is only the first heavenly tribulation. There were at least 9 heavenly tribulations for cultivators, and each one was stronger than the last. The last one might even be comparable to a sage's attack." After the first heavenly tribulation, the rolling dark clouds were accumulating the power of the second heavenly tribulation, and there was no movement for the time being. Suddenly, Chu Kuangren's expression changed slightly. A murderous aura suddenly appeared in the air. Not far away, a sloppy man with a broken arm slowly walked up the mountain. This person's body was filled with extremely sharp sword qi, and the flowers and trees everywhere were all cut into pieces by the sword qi. It was a mess. "Oh, it's you, Feng Wuchang." Honorable Xianxia glanced at the sloppy middle-aged man and recognized him. "Honorable Xianxia, you've accepted a good disciple. In the entire Black Heaven sect, he's the only one to protect you." Feng Wuchang glanced at Chu Kuangren and said indifferently, "Heh, if it wasn't just me, would you dare to show yourselves?" Chu Kuangren sneered. Then, he looked at the chopped flowers and trees behind him and said coldly, "Even if it's just a blade of grass or a tree, it belongs to the Black Heaven sect. No one can touch it." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly raised his palm. Boundless energy of the earth gathered around him, and with a slap of his palm, a divine mountain instantly appeared. Feng Wuchang's expression changed slightly. He raised his hand and slashed out with his sword. The terrifying sword qi slashed onto the divine mountain, and the violent impact forced him to take a few steps back. What terrifying strength! Chu Kuangren truly lives up to his name. Feng Wuchang said solemnly. He had heard a lot of rumors about Chu Kuangren. Now that he was facing this peerless sky pride head-on, he felt a tremendous amount of pressure. When he thought of this, he became extremely jealous of Honorable Xianxia. Why was it that he had sunk into a wine shop all these years, while the other party was a high and mighty master of an orthodoxy, even taking in a disciple like this? This was too unfair. Honorable Xianxia, long time no see." Loud laughter could be heard as a sword ray flew towards them from afar. It landed in front of them and turned into a white-haired old man in a green robe. The sword qi around the old man was no weaker than Feng Wuchang's. Buzz buzz, suddenly, a buzzing sound could be heard from the void. It was as if countless swords were vibrating. A white-haired man walked up from the foot of the mountain, holding an ancient longsword in his hand. "Honorable swordsman of 1,000 cries." Honorable Xianxia revealed the man's identity. Ever since Honorable Swordsman White Cloud's death, Honorable Swordsman of 1,000 cries' sword Dao cultivation base was second only to him in the Azure Dragon domain. Of course, that did not include Chu Kuangren. Hee, what a grand occasion. An old man wrapped in a black robe walked over. His body was surging with a majestic Daoist rhyme, like the endless waves of the sea. One by one, the experts appeared and surrounded the mountain peak. The atmosphere was extremely tense. Chu Kuangren activated his eye of revelation and scanned through the crowd. Looks like you guys brought quite a lot of people. The Jade Water Sword Sect's senior elder, Feng Wucheng, honorable swordsman of 1,000 cries, honorable Zhuo Lang, and the others who caused trouble in the Black Heaven sect. There must be a mastermind behind this. Still not coming out? Chu Kuangren looked somewhere in the void. A ripple appeared and Linghu Hong walked out from the void, looking at Chu Kuangren with admiration. Little guy, we're here for your honorable teacher. It has nothing to do with you. You can save your life if you leave now. Are you out of your mind? If you're here for my honorable teacher, how can it have nothing to do with me? Chu Kuangren curled his lips and said. Linghu Hong's face darkened when he heard that. You don't know what's good for you. Boom. At that moment, the second heavenly tribulation struck towards Honorable Xianxia. Everyone quickly looked over. They saw that the heavenly tribulation energy was still directed to the ground by the Thundersuther rod. The scene before them shocked Linghu Hong and the others. What is this? How can it direct the heavenly tribulation energy? What a great treasure! No wonder Honorable Xianxia dared to go through the heavenly tribulation. It's because of this item. Linghu Hong and the others' hearts skipped a beat. They felt that things had developed beyond their expectations because they did not know that the Black Heaven sect had such a treasure that was specifically designed to counter heavenly tribulations. Initially, they planned to attack Honorable Xianxia after he was done with the heavenly tribulation and was exhausted. However, it seemed that he had such a treasure that he could definitely save most of his energy to deal with them. Linghu Hong, you've miscalculated. Today, you're destined to come to the Black Heaven sect without leaving. Honorable Xianxia laughed and held the purple star in his hand, ready to deal with Linghu Hong and the others first. At that moment, Chu Kuangren stepped forward and stopped him. Honorable teacher, please save your energy to deal with the heavenly tribulation. Leave them to me. What? Not only Honorable Xianxia, but Linghu Hong and the others were also stunned. There were a total of 5 of them here, and all of them were honorable supremes. Chu Kuangren actually said that he wanted to deal with all 5 of them alone? Who did he think he was? A sage? Arrogant. Honorable swordsman of 1,000 cries snorted coldly. I'll kill you today. I'll show Sword Prayer City and the whole world that your so-called #1 position in the 100-sword spectrum is nothing but a joke. The 100-sword spectrum was widely recognized in the world of swordsmanship, but Chu Kuangren's ranking as #1 had always been controversial. Honorable swordsman of 1,000 cries was one of the people who disapproved of it the most. Kill. Honorable swordsman of 1,000 cries made his move. With his first slash, majestic sword chi gushed out as if 1,000 swords had formed a giant sword. In the face of this attack, Chu Kuangren's expression was incomparably calm. The Descendant's self-sword appeared in his hand, and a terrifying Daoist rhyme instantly erupted. With one slash, the sky-covering purple sword ray tore apart the giant sword's shadow in almost an instant and blasted onto Honorable Swordsman of 1,000 cries. The dignified Supreme Honorable Swordsman was directly blasted away by this slash. A large amount of sword chi wreaked havoc on Honorable Swordsman of 1,000 cries' body. His clothes were torn apart, and sword wounds appeared on his body. In the blink of an eye, he was covered in blood and looked extremely pathetic. Just one slash was enough to make everyone's pupils shrink. Severely injuring the Supreme Honorable Swordsman with one slash? What kind of terrifying strength was that? I'm the #1 in the 100-sword spectrum, and you dare to object? Chapter 170. I'm ranked first in the sword spectrum. Do you dare to object? Chu Kuangren said calmly. He had severely injured Honorable Swordsman of 1,000 cries with just one attack, and at the same time, intimidated the remaining 4 Honorable Supremes. The few of them stared at Chu Kuangren in disbelief. Each of them was an Honorable Supreme, and they were sky prides who dominated their own regions when they were young. However, They now felt that their so-called talent was not even worth mentioning in front of Chu Kuangren. Severely injuring an honorable supreme with one attack. Since when was there such a monster in the younger generation? Let's attack together. Third forefather Linghu can't hold off the Black Heaven sect sage for too long. We must end this quickly. Linghu Hong said. He made a prompt decision and attacked Chu Kuangren. With one attack, the might of an honorable supreme was fully unleashed. Let me see the sword techniques of a swordsman family. Chu Kuangren chuckled and unleashed all 3 Daoist physique transformations. 9 Heaven Sword Prison, Green Lotus Sword Song, Sword of the Heavens. A terrifying sword-based Daoist rhyme surrounded Chu Kuangren, and a majestic spiritual power flowed within his body. Every time he swung his sword, the terrifying power brought great pressure to Linghu Hong. Moreover, Chu Kuangren's understanding of Dao techniques was too deep, and his exquisite 9 orifices sword heart directly suppressed Linghu Hong's sword-based Daoist rhyme. If Linghu Hong was not a veteran honorable supreme who was far stronger than honorable swordsman of 1,000 cries, he would not be able to withstand more than a few attacks from Chu Kuangren. I've long heard of how amazing Chu Kuangren is. But this level of strength is just too ridiculous. Even the young emperor of my Linghu family does not have such combat strength. I can't believe the Black Heaven sect has such a monster. Linghu Hong was extremely shocked. At that moment, Honorable Zhuo Lang, the Jade Watersword sect's senior elder, and Feng Wuchang also attacked Chu Kuangren together with Linghu Hong. In an instant, all kinds of Dao techniques shone brightly and shook the void. Not far away, Honorable Swordsman of 1,000 cries took out a medicinal pill and swallowed it. His face turned pale as he watched Chu Kuangren, who was facing off against 4 honorable supremes all by himself. I can't believe this person is so strong. Honorable Swordsman of 1,000 cries had seen all kinds of sky prides, but he swore that no one could compare to Chu Kuangren. I admit it, you are indeed worthy of being ranked first in the sword spectrum. But Xian Qi will definitely fail his tribulation today. While Chu Kuangren was busy dealing with 4 honorable supremes, Honorable Swordsman of 1,000 cries dashed towards Honorable Swordsman Xian Qi. The other party had just completed the 3rd heavenly tribulation. What Venerable Swordsman of 1,000 cries wanted to do was to exhaust the other party's stamina as much as possible so that the other party would fail the heavenly tribulation. During the battle, Chu Kuangren had also noticed Honorable Swordsman of 1,000 cries' whereabouts. A cold glint flashed across his eyes. You're courting death, aren't you? A black chain suddenly flew out of his body, streaking across the sky like a black bolt of lightning. Venerable Swordsman of 1,000 cries, who was charging towards Honorable Xian Qi, felt a chill run down his spine. His scalp went numb and the blood in his body almost froze. Danger. It was extremely dangerous. Honorable Swordsman of 1,000 cries quickly turned around and slashed with his sword. The sword Qi hit the soul retriever and sent it flying. However, the soul retriever was a sage ruler weapon and was made of very special materials. Even a sage might not be able to damage it at all. The sword Qi of Venerable Swordsman of 1,000 cries could not destroy the chain. It circled in the air for a while and continued to attack him as if it had a consciousness of its own. What the hell is this thing? Honorable Swordsman of 1,000 cries dodged the soul retriever. His instincts told him that if he were to be hooked by the chain, he would not end up well. Chu Kuangren pulled the other end of the soul retriever and manipulated it to chase after Honorable Swordsman of 1,000 cries. The soul retriever was very special. It was as if it could extend indefinitely, so it could catch up to Honorable Swordsman of 1,000 cries no matter where he ran to. Not long after, the length of the chain had reached more than 10 kilometers. It circled in the air and emanated a strange fluctuation. Not only that, but Honorable Swordsman of 1,000 cries was also trapped in the encirclement formed by the chain. The area where he could dodge was getting smaller and smaller. Quick, stop him! Honorable Swordsman of 1,000 cries yelled. Linghu Hong, Feng Wuchang, and the others hurriedly activated their ultimate techniques. Several different Daoist rhymes and majestic spiritual powers suddenly erupted. Soaring destruction. Torrential waves. Winds of impermanence. Ever-flowing emerald water. 3 surges of sword chi and 1 palm chi blasted towards Chu Kuangren. This was the combined attack of 4 honorable supremes, and it was extremely powerful. White lotus light of purification. Chu Kuangren stood still on the spot. Suddenly, white lotuses appeared around him and swayed in the air. It was a beautiful sight to behold. When the 4 surges of energy collided with the white lotuses, there was no earth-shattering explosion. The white lotuses were shattered one by one, but the techniques that Ling Hu Hong and the other 3 honorable supremes had unleashed were also disintegrated. Daoist rhymes and spiritual qi intertwined and collided in the air, and eventually, everything returned to nothingness. Not far away, honorable swordsman of 1,000 cries finally could not hide anymore. He was tightly entangled by the soul retriever, and the hook at the end of the chain pierced into his body. However, there was no sign of blood at all. The hook was like a large demonic hand that stirred an honorable swordsman of 1,000 cries' body. Honorable swordsman of 1,000 cries first let out a tragic cry, and then his eyes gradually became empty. What's going on? There's something strange about this black chain. Ling Hu Hong and the others stared at honorable swordsman of 1,000 cries, and then they saw a scene that made their scalps tingle. They saw that the hook had actually grabbed another honorable swordsman of 1,000 cries' body. To be precise, it was his soul. Why is this happening? My physical body, what the hell is this thing? Honorable swordsman of 1,000 cries watched helplessly as his soul was pulled out of his physical body. His face was filled with horror. Chu Kuangren raised his hand and activated the gluttonous devouring technique, sucking honorable swordsman of 1,000 cries' physical body into the avarice dimension for refinement, turning it into an incomparably pure flesh and blood essence. The spiritual power that was originally more than half consumed was quickly replenished. This chain can target the soul. D****, why does he have such a thing? Ling Hu Hong and the others were so scared that their faces turned a little pale. Methods that targeted the soul were too rare and too terrifying. Kuangren really has a lot of treasures on him. I can't believe he even has such a weapon that targets the soul, Honorable Xianxia murmured. Then, he shook his head and smiled, not planning to ask about it later. He was sure that Chu Kuangren would only answer him with 2 words, and that was opportunity of fortune. Although he knew that Chu Kuangren had secrets in his heart, the other party was also his good disciple, so Honorable Xianxia chose to believe him unconditionally. Chu Kuangren held the soul retriever in one hand and the descendant self sword in the other as he looked at the few honorable supremes in front of him. From the moment you chose to come to the Black Heavens sect to stop my honorable teacher from ascension, you were destined to fail. Today, my honorable teacher will successfully ascend and become a sage in the future, and all of you will stay here. Chu Kuangren said coldly and then pulled the soul retriever hard. Honorable swordsman of 1,000 cries' soul let out a heart-wrenching scream as cracks appeared on his soul. Then, it exploded silently, and his soul was scattered. No, this chain is too terrifying. Moreover, Chu Kuangren's combat strength cannot be underestimated. A long battle is disadvantageous. Looks like I can only use the item given by the 3rd forefather. Ling Hu Hong gritted his teeth and then took out a small golden sword. A mysterious sword-based Daoist rhyme emanated from it. Chapter 171. Ling Hu Hong took out a small golden sword, and a mysterious sword-based Daoist rhyme filled the air, shocking everyone present. Venerable Zhuolang, Feng Wuchang, and the others couldn't help but take several steps back. Honorable Xianxi's expression changed slightly. Heart-piercing sword. That's right, it's the heart-piercing sword. Ling Hu Hong sneered. The heart-slaying sword was a saint ruler technique of the Ling Hu family. Only a few people in the entire Ling Hu family had been able to successfully comprehend it. This sword could pry open one's Dao heart, kill and destroy the heart. The 3rd ancestor left me this heart-slaying sword. I wanted to use it against you, but I didn't expect it to be used on your disciple. Without saying a word, Ling Hu Hong threw the small golden sword in his hand. Kuangren, be careful. Honorable Xianxi's expression changed and he was about to rush out of the Thundersoother rod to block the sword chi. However, at this moment, his heavenly tribulation descended and a pillar of light shrouded his body, preventing him from leaving. Buzz! The golden sword pierced through the void at an incredible speed and instantly pierced into Chu Kuangren's body, causing him to tremble slightly. Linghu Hong and the others were delighted to see this. This is the heart-killing sword used by a sage. Those who do not have a strong enough Daoist heart, even if they are an honorable supreme, will be instantly torn apart by the sword chi. Linghu Hong laughed heartily. This is the heart-killing sword? It's nothing much. However, at that moment, Chu Kuangren's calm voice slowly rang out. Linghu Hong's smile suddenly froze. Then, he looked at Chu Kuangren with his eyes and mouth wide open. His face was filled with shock. Impossible. This is impossible. How could you block the heart-killing sword with your cultivation? Linghu Hong could not believe it. The heart-killing sword can kill people's hearts. Have you never thought that your so-called third ancestor can't destroy my Dao heart? Chu Kuangren said indifferently. He possessed the bolder Dao heart, which was difficult to shake. In the past, the mental staircase of the Whitelock Saint could not do anything to him at all, and the same was true for the heart-killing sword. As for Linghu Hong and the others, they had also guessed something and were shocked. How could a junior have such a Taoist heart? Chu Kuangren's innate talent and unshakable Daoist core. This Chu Kuangren is a monster. Honorable Zhuolang gulped. He regretted it. He regretted coming to the Black Heaven sect. Now, it was difficult to even escape. Boom! A heavenly tribulation descended and blasted towards Honorable Xianxia. The Thundersoother rod directed the energy of the heavenly tribulation to the ground, but a portion of the energy was already attacking Honorable Xianxia. However, this portion of the heavenly tribulation's power could not affect him. Chu Kuangren glanced at him and chuckled. Honorable teacher, continue with your ascension in peace. I can deal with these small fries. He lightly tugged on the Soul Reaper chain, and the pitch-black chain emanated a strange aura as it shot towards Feng Wuchang. After witnessing the might of the soul-reaping chain, Feng Wuchang's face changed drastically. Sword chi revolved around his body to block the soul-reaping chain. However, as Chu Kuangren channeled his spiritual power into the soul retriever, the hook at the end of the chain began to emanate waves of terrifying dark chi. The sword chi shattered, and the chains wrapped around Feng Wuchang. He had a terrified expression on his face and wanted to escape, but he couldn't break free from the chains. Go! Supremacy Zhuolang no longer wanted to get involved in this mess. He turned into a streak of light and fled into the distance. At that moment, a streak of sword light surged and sent Supremacy Zhuolang flying back. It was the seventh forefather. He glared at them coldly. Today, all those who came to cause trouble in the Black Heaven sect shall not return alive. D***it. Get lost. Supremacy Zhuolang attacked ferociously, and a majestic Daoist rhyme erupted. Chu Kuangren tugged on the Soul Reaper chain, and Feng Wuchang's soul was also hooked out, shattered into pieces. Both the Jade Watersword sect's senior elder and Linghu Hong were extremely afraid of the Soul Reaper chain. Unwilling to face it head-on, they exchanged a glance and attacked Chu Kuangren from both sides, trying to fight for a chance of survival. Humph, idiots. Chu Kuangren snorted coldly. With one hand, he controlled the Soul Reaper chain to fight the Jade Watersword sect's senior elder while the other wielded his sword to fight Linghu Hong. He was able to fight on equal footing with both of them at the same time. As time passed, the troublemakers that Linghu Hong and the others sent to cause trouble in the Black Heaven sect were dealt with one by one. Elder Ruyan and the others finally arrived. The people of the Linghu family are despicable. Humph, go to hell. With the addition of Elder Ruyan and the others, Linghu Hong and the others could be said to have lost the upper hand. The Jade Watersword sect's senior elder had to deal with the Soul Reaper chain while fighting the Black Heaven sect's honorable. In the end, he was caught by the Soul Reaper chain, and his soul was torn apart. It was the first time Elder Ruyan and the others had seen the Soul Reaper chain. They were also shocked by the weapon and felt their scalps tingle. Fortunately, this weapon is in Quangren's hands. If it were an enemy, the consequences would be unimaginable, Elder Ruyan said. Yeah, I wonder where the lead disciple got it from. I know, it must have been obtained by chance. Elder Ruyan said with a smile. The other elders rolled their eyes. What she said was as good as not saying anything. Die, Linghu Hong. Chu Quangren raised his hand and unleashed a sword attack. A surge of Emperor's aura filled the air. It was the heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique that had been upgraded to an Emperor technique. Faced with this attack, even a veteran Honorable Supreme like Linghu Hong could not withstand it. He yelled, "Third Forefather, save me!" Stop! A slightly angry voice came from the void. However, Chu Quangren did not have any intention of stopping. He slashed his sword and a violent purple sword ray instantly engulfed Linghu Hong. A supreme being had perished and his Tao extinguished. The void trembled. A white-robed elder stepped into the void with a boundless aura. This person's aura was far stronger than an honorable supreme. This was the sage aura. He was a sage. I told you to stop, why didn't you? The white-robed elder stared at Chu Quangren with anger in his eyes. Facing the sage aura, Chu Quangren was neither humble nor arrogant. He deserves to die for coming to the Black Heaven sect and trying to disrupt my honorable teacher's ascension. That's right, he deserves to die. Behind Chu Quangren, a white-haired elder slowly walked out. He patted Chu Quangren's shoulder and smiled. Young man, you did well. You're right too. You should address me as Third Forefather. Third Forefather? Black Heaven's Third Forefather. The sage behind the Black Heaven sect. Chu Quangren's expression turned serious. Greetings, Third Forefather. Heh, you're welcome. Black Heaven's Third Forefather smiled faintly and then looked at the white-robed elder in the sky. Third Forefather Linghu, the juniors of your clan have come to Black Heaven's sect to cause trouble. They deserve to die. What, do you still want to fight? You. Third Forefather Linghu was speechless. They were in the wrong in the first place, but it was impossible for them to sit back and watch as the Black Heaven sect gained another sage. Initially, with him holding off Black Heaven's Third Forefather, Linghu Hong and the other Honorable Supremes, they would definitely be able to stop Honorable Xianxia from ascension. Who would have thought that Chu Quangren would appear? While the rest of the Black Heaven sect was busy dealing with other people, this young man could fight against 5 Honorable Supremes alone. At this moment, to Third Forefather Linghu, Honorable Xianxia was far less of a threat than Chu Quangren, who was only in the Battle Monarch realm. Black Heaven sect, you guys sure are lucky. Third Forefather Linghu gritted his teeth and said. Whether it was Honorable Xianxia's ascension or having a disciple like Chu Quangren, the Black Heaven sect could be considered lucky. However, it was not good news for the Linghu clan. Chapter 172. Boom! Another wave of heavenly tribulation descended. This was Honorable Xianxia's 7th wave of heavenly tribulation. At this time, the power of the heavenly tribulation was extremely strong. Even the Thundersuther could not direct all of the power of the heavenly tribulation to the ground. After the 7th wave of heavenly tribulation descended, the majestic impact directly flattened the entire mountain, and the Thundersuther was also sent flying. At this point, Honorable Xianxia was completely exposed to the heavenly tribulation. Everyone present stared at him without blinking. Third Forefather Linghu was the same. Although the operation had failed, he was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he stayed to see if Honorable Xianxia could successfully overcome the heavenly tribulation. Old friend, let's fight side by side again. Honorable Xianxia held the purple star, and the sword-based Daoist rhymes on his body continued to rise. He had activated the heavenly crepe myrtle sword technique to the extreme. He looked at the 8th wave of heavenly tribulation that was accumulating power with a solemn expression. A beam of light descended and locked onto Honorable Xianxia. Immediately after, the eighth wave of heavenly tribulation descended, and the violent power it contained made Elder Ruyan and the others feel a wave of fear. Come! Honorable Xianqi raised his hand and slashed. A terrifying purple sword light surged out wildly. It was the heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique. He had successfully comprehended this sage ruler technique, and with his honorable supreme cultivation base, it seemed like the world was about to be torn apart. The sword light and lightning collided in the void. The terrifying shockwave spread out like a tide, wave after wave, constantly sweeping in all directions. Trees, rocks, and everything around them were destroyed. Honorable Xianqi was sent flying by the impact, and a huge pit was formed on the ground, with countless cracks spreading out. In the pit, Honorable Xianqi's robe was torn, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. There were electric arcs jumping on his body, constantly destroying it. The power of the eighth wave of heavenly tribulation is beyond imagination. Honorable Xianqi murmured. Just one blow was enough to injure him quite a bit. With his current physical condition, he might not be able to overcome the last wave of heavenly tribulation. Third forefather Linghu's eyes lit up. He kept cursing Honorable Xianqi for failing to overcome the heavenly tribulation. Honorable Xianqi stood up, took out a golden pill, and swallowed it. A huge wave of medicinal power instantly swept through his limbs and bones. Waves of Daoist rhymes filled the air, and his injuries were rapidly recovering. Third forefather Linghu was dumbfounded. This is a sage-to-be healing elixir. Third forefather Linghu exclaimed in astonishment, that's not right. Even a quasi-sage healing pill doesn't have this kind of effect. This is at least a quasi-sage treasure pill, and it's at least a grade 7 treasure pill. There were not many alchemists in the entire firmament star who could refine sage-grade medicinal pills, let alone quasi-sage-grade supreme pills and above. Where did Xian Tian's sect find such an alchemist? The pills refined by Kuangren are indeed very useful. Honorable Xianqi laughed heartily as sword qi emanated from his body. He was ready to face the ninth wave of heavenly tribulation with his full strength. Rumble, rumble, dark clouds surged, and the power of lightning surged wildly. The light of heavenly tribulation locked onto Honorable Xianqi once again. A ferocious beast made of thick lightning energy crawled out of the dark cloud vortex. It looked a little like a dragon. The thunder dragon roared, and a terrifying aura emanated from it. Then, the thunder dragon swooped down towards Honorable Xianqi. Wherever it went, the void trembled violently, and the mountains and rivers trembled. This attack had reached the level of a sage's attack. Elder Ruyan and the others were worried. No wonder so many people are afraid of ascension. This ninth wave of tribulation is so powerful. How can an honorable withstand it? Only those veteran honorable supremes with deep foundations can withstand it. But there are still 8 more waves of tribulation before that. Ascension is indeed a narrow escape. Chu Kuangren, who was watching from the side, also broke out in cold sweat for Honorable Xianqi. He wished he could rush up and take his place. With his strength and immortal body, he was not afraid at all. However, even if he rushed up, the power of tribulation would not let Honorable Xianqi go. There was a high chance that both of them would have to endure an even more terrifying power of tribulation. Heavenly tribulations were unavoidable and irreplaceable. In the face of this last wave of tribulation, Honorable Xianqi roared. He did not choose to draw his sword, but instead took out a bronze shield. The shield was placed horizontally in front of him and became huge, blocking the thunder dragon. All that was heard was a deafening explosion. Then, cracks appeared on the shield. Honorable Xianqi's pupils shrank slightly. He did not expect that the item he had carefully prepared for ascension would not be able to withstand the 9th heavenly tribulation. The shield shattered, and the thunder dragon crashed into Honorable Xianqi's body like a hot knife through butter. He urged the sword qi in his body to resist, but there was still a large amount of lightning energy ravaging his body. At this critical moment, Honorable Xianqi bit the 2 rejuvenation pills that he had previously kept in his mouth. The medicinal power erupted and healed his body. It was like a tug of war, causing Honorable Xianxia to repeatedly jump on the edge of life and death. In the end, because Honorable Xianxia had preserved most of his spiritual power and physical strength, coupled with the medicinal power of the rejuvenation pills, he finally survived the last wave of tribulation. We did it. Huh, that's great. Elder Ruyan and the others were relieved and overjoyed. The dark clouds in the sky dissipated and were replaced by purple auspicious clouds. Between the firmament, waves of Daoist rhymes reverberated. Honorable Xianxia stood where he was. Suddenly, an incomparably mysterious feeling emerged in his heart, and the Daoist rhymes on his body continued to strengthen. At this moment, all the powerhouses in the world seemed to have sensed something and looked in the direction of the Black Heaven sect. Oh, someone has passed the heavenly tribulation. As long as this person doesn't die, another sage will be born in this world in the future. That's the direction of the Black Heaven sect. The Black Heaven sect is really lucky. Inside the Black Heaven sect, third forefather Linghu's expression was extremely ugly. He scoffed coldly and was about to leave. At this moment, a sage Daoist rhyme locked onto him, brewing a terrifying killing intent that made his heart skip a beat. It was Black Heaven's third forefather. You came just like that, and now you plan to leave just like that? Don't you think the Linghu family has no respect for the Black Heaven sect? Take it. Third forefather Linghu took out a yin and yang ring and tossed it to third forefather Black Heaven. Yo, 60 million upper tier soul stones and 30 drops of heaven's spiritual marrow. You're treating me like a beggar. Third forefather Black Heaven's expression turned cold. Don't go too far. These things are enough to cause countless orthodoxies to fight over them. Isn't that enough? Not enough. It's far from enough. Then what else do you want? The Black Heaven sect wants another spot for the sword gauntlet. Impossible. Third forefather Linghu said coldly. Very well, the Linghu family will lose a sage today. Third forefather Black Heaven said coldly. From afar, a terrifying burst of chi erupted from the depths of the Black Heaven sect and locked onto third forefather Linghu. Black Heaven's second forefather. That old fart isn't dead yet. Third forefather Linghu's expression changed. He then gritted his teeth and said with a pained expression, Fine, the Linghu family will give you one more spot. Words alone are no proof. Swear on your Daoist core. The so-called Daoist core oath was to swear on one's Daoist core and let the great Tao bear witness to it. Once the oath was broken, one's Daoist core would be tarnished, making it difficult for one's cultivation base to improve. In the worst-case scenario, one would be haunted by inner demons and never be able to find peace for the rest of their lives. Even demonic cultivators were extremely wary of this Daoist core oath. Third forefather Linghu had no choice but to obediently swear on his Daoist core oath and leave in a sullen manner. This time, not only did the Linghu family fail to prevent the Black Heaven sect from gaining another boundary sage, but they also lost an honorable supreme, a large number of soul stones, and even an important spot. Chapter 173. Honorable Xianxia had completed his ascension and successfully entered the boundary sage realm. As long as he worked hard, becoming a sage was just around the corner. Xianxia, congratulations. Black Heaven's third forefather smiled at Honorable Xianxia. This is all thanks to Kuangren. Without him and the interference of the Linghu family, things would not have been so easy. Honorable Xianxia laughed. He looked at Chu Kuangren with a gratified look. This young man is indeed talented. I've asked the Linghu family for an additional quota for the sword gauntlet, so I'll let him lead the team. A quota for the sword gauntlet? That's great. Honorable Xianxia's eyes lit up. Beside him, Chu Kuangren was a little confused. This so-called sword gauntlet seemed to be very important to even the sages. However, he temporarily suppressed his doubts. Although Honorable Xianxia had completed his ascension, this matter was not over yet. Other than the Linghu family, there were also a few forces that came to Black Heaven sect to stir up trouble. The Black Heaven sect would not let these forces go. They would have to deal with them. Among them, the Jadewater sect was the strongest. It was an honorable orthodoxy that was second only to the sage orthodoxies. Naturally, the Black Heaven sect would not let them go. They immediately sent people to suppress this force, and the one leading them was Chu Kuangren. On the ferry boat, Chu Kuangren stood on the deck and looked at the sea of clouds. What a tiring life I have. I just finished dealing with the demonic onslaught in the Qian nation, and now I have to help my honorable teacher with his ascension. Now I have to suppress an honorable orthodoxy. How inhumane. He looked up to the sky and sighed helplessly. Beside him, the seventh forefather smiled and said, "The sect leader must have his reasons for doing this. Young man, do you know that now that the sect leader has stepped into the boundary sage realm, the next step is to slowly build up his foundation to become a sage? This is a long process. If there are no other opportunities, it could take a few hundred years or a few thousand years. The less disturbances the better. I'm afraid the sect leader has decided to retire." Chu Kuangren was stunned. If he retires, what will happen to the Black Heaven sect? Has the next sect leader been decided? He had only asked casually, but when he saw the seventh forefather staring straight at him, his heart skipped a beat. With a face full of bewilderment, he pointed a finger at himself. "It can't be me, right? It's you. Damn, what kind of joke is this? You want me to be the sect leader? There are so many elders in the sect. Elder Ruyan would be fine too. You have enough prestige, enough power, and you're the only disciple of the sect leader. If I don't look for you, who else would I look for?" The seventh patriarch laughed. "I'm just a battle king. Tell that to the others and see who will believe you." The seventh forefather could not help but roll his eyes. "Stop teasing me. You are a battle king, but you can hang a supreme honorable being up and beat him up. Sending you here to suppress the Jade Water Sword sect is also a way for you to practice your skills and build up your reputation in the outside world. This will pave the way for you to ascend to the position of sect leader in the future," the seventh forefather continued. "Sigh, we'll see." Chu Kuangren shook his head helplessly. Within the Jade Water Sword sect, a few elders were pacing back and forth anxiously. What should we do now? According to the news, the Great Elder has been killed in the Black Heaven sect. The Black Heaven sect will not let us go. An elder said anxiously. We should have stopped the Great Elder back then and not allowed him to act on his emotions. Now, he's stirred up such a huge disaster. That's right. Let's think about how to deal with the Black Heaven sect first. How are we going to deal with them alone? Enough. At that moment, a woman in green robes shouted and stopped the crowd. She was the current sect leader of the Jade Water Sword sect. What are you panicking for? The Jade Water Sword sect will not perish. The Jade Water Sword sect leader said coldly. Sect leader, do you have any ideas? Young Emperor Linghu is still here. He promised to protect the Jade Water Sword sect. Let him handle this, the Jade Water Sword sect leader said. The elders felt slightly relieved when they heard that. If they were to fight the Black Heaven sect alone, they would definitely lose. However, things would be different if young Emperor Linghu was included. The Jade Water Sword sect represented the Linghu family, which was also a sage orthodoxy. Even the Black Heaven sect would have to think twice. In a garden of the Jade Water Sword sect, a young man in a black robe was strolling with a smiling young lady. The young lady was very close to the young man and seemed to be on good terms with him. Big brother Linghu, thanks to your guidance, I've improved a lot. The young lady smiled. The young man in black robes had a gentle look in his eyes. It's my duty. Oh right, Lu Yen, I'll be returning to the Linghu family in a few days. Are you willing to go with me? The young lady was pleasantly surprised when she heard that. Really? Big brother Linghu, you're really willing to bring me back to the Linghu family? Of course. You're my woman. Where else would you go if not to the Linghu family? Don't worry, you're very talented. With my guidance, you'll definitely break through to the honorable level in a few years. Big brother Linghu, you're so good to me. Lu Yan hugged the young man in black robes, her eyes filled with tenderness. Heh, silly girl. Who else would I be good to if not you? The young man in black robes smiled. At that moment, he frowned slightly. Not far away, a Jade Watersword sect leader slowly walked over and bowed. Greetings, young emperor. Lu Yan blushed and let go of the young man in black robes. She then said to the Jade Watersword sect leader, you're here. Yes, I have a favor to ask of you, young emperor. Speak, the young man in black robes said. The people from the Black Heaven sect are about to reach the Jade Watersword sect. With our current strength, it'll be difficult to stop them. I hope the young emperor can lend us a hand. Don't worry about that. My uncle has an agreement with the Jade Watersword sect. Although he's now dead in the Black Heaven sect, the Linghu family will still honor our promise. Besides, Lu Yan is here too. Big brother Linghu. Lu Yan was touched again. Thank you, young emperor. The Jade Watersword sect leader's eyes lit up. Then, she thought of something and said, by the way, the person who brought them here is Chu Kuangren. A hint of surprise flashed across Linghu's young emperor's eyes. Chu Kuangren? The legendary Chu Kuangren who's ranked first in the 100 sword spectrum? Yes, that's him. Big brother Linghu, I've heard that this person is very powerful. Why don't you ask for help from your family? Lu Yan said worriedly. Although Linghu's young emperor was afraid of Chu Kuangren, he could not show his fear in front of his woman. He sneered and said, Chu Kuangren, I've long wanted to meet this person. Now that I have the chance today, how can I miss it? Let me see what he's made of. Looking at Linghu's young emperor's high-spirited look, Lu Yan could not help but admire him. Big brother Linghu, I believe you can defeat Chu Kuangren. In my heart, you're the strongest. That's only natural. At that moment, the ferry boat from the Black Heavens sect had arrived at the Jade Watersword sect's airspace. Many cultivators saw the flying flag on the ferry boat and knew that it was the ferry boat of the Sage Orthodoxy, the Black Heaven sect. There were also sword cultivators standing on the ferry boat. Every single one of them was emanating an extremely sharp sword chi, and they looked very imposing. Chapter 174. Those are the people from the Black Heaven sect. Why are they here? And why are there so many of them? What are they doing here? They're all sword cultivators. Heavens. 1, 2, 3. There's a total of 18 ferry boats, and there are at least 100 sword cultivators on each ferry boat. Judging from the way these sword cultivators are trained, they're the disciples from the Hall of Battle who are the best at combat in Black Heaven sect. What are they doing? This is the territory of the Green Water Sword sect. Do they want to start a war with the Jade Water Sword sect? Oh my god, this is big news. All the cultivators who saw the Black Heaven sect's ferry boats were scared out of their wits. Even though the ferry boats were far away from them, they could still feel the sword chi that filled the sky. It was too scary. On the ferry boat, a Hall of Battle disciple walked up to Chu Kuangren and said respectfully, Elder's senior brother, the Jade Water sect is just ahead. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. Understood. Not long after, Chu Kuangren had a full view of the Jade Watersword sect. Surrounded by mountains and water, it was indeed a treasure land. Unfortunately, this treasured land was going to see blood today. Inside the Jade Watersword sect, countless disciples saw the mighty Black Heaven sect's ferry boat and the sword cultivators with sharp sword auras. What's going on? Why are there people from the mysterious Sky sect here? And they don't look like they've come with good intentions. No way. The Jade Water sect is a top-notch honorable orthodoxy. Does the Black Heaven sect want to declare war on us? Why are you doing this for no reason? Most of the disciples had no idea that the Jade Watersword sect's Grand Elder had gone to the Xian Heaven sect to cause trouble. Only a few of the higher-ups were not surprised to see what had happened, and their expressions were grave. He's finally here. Whether or not the Jade Water Sword sect can survive this ordeal depends on the will of the heavens. Buzz buzz, at that moment, the space above the Jade Water Sword sect suddenly twisted. A huge light shield formed above the sect like an upside-down bowl. This is the great protective formation of the Jade Water Sword sect. Many orthodoxies had similar mechanisms, but they were usually not used lightly. They would only be activated in times of crisis. This was undoubtedly a moment of life and death for the Jade Water Sword sect. After the formation was activated, a green figure flew out. It was a beautiful woman, and she was none other than the leader of the Jade Water Sword sect. Fellow Daoists of the Black Heaven sect, why have you come from afar? The sect master of the Green Water sect smiled faintly and asked despite knowing the answer. Chu Kuangren curled his lips and stepped out into the air. With every step he took, the sword-based Daoist rhymes on his body grew denser, crashing against the void like a tidal wave, crashing towards the sect master of Green Water. Below them, the Jade Water sect disciples saw Chu Kuangren. Although they were enemies now, they could not help but be attracted by Chu Kuangren's fairy-like appearance and extraordinary temperament. So this person is Chu Kuangren. He really is extraordinary. It is rumored that this person is ranked first in the 100-sword spectrum and has even killed a supreme being. His strength is extremely powerful. I never expected that he would personally come. Looks like this isn't a simple matter. Even the immortals in the heavens are only a so-so. Do you think it's too late for me to defect to the enemy? Among the crowd, Lu Yen had also noticed Chu Kuangren. A look of amazement flashed across her eyes. She then looked at the young emperor of Linghu beside him and felt that he was much better looking than Linghu. Despite thinking that, she let out a soft snort. You're just a man of appearance. Compared to brother Linghu, you're nothing. Linghu's young emperor felt much better upon hearing that. Lu Yen is right. A man of appearance is nothing compared to me. Yes, brother Linghu is the best. If the sect master of Green Water heard their conversation, she would definitely curse out loud. This was because compared to the others, she was more aware of how terrifying Chu Kuangren was. That terrifying sword-based Daoist rhyme locked onto her, making her, an honorable supreme, shudder. Was this the Daoist rhyme that a man of appearance could possess? *T. Rumor has it that Chu Kuangren's cultivation level is not high, but he can spar with a sage. How terrifying! The sect master of Green Water looked at the white-robed Chu Kuangren before her, and cold sweat broke out on her smooth forehead. Chu Kuangren looked at the sect master of Green Water sect and said indifferently, "You should know very well why we're here today. Now, I'll give you two choices. 1. Submit to the Black Heaven sect and pay tribute every year. 2. Send the entire sect to hell." The sect master of Green Water sect's expression changed drastically when she heard the second choice. Isn't the Black Heaven sect a little too overbearing? Besides, what the senior elder did has nothing to do with us. It's all his doing alone. She then took out a letter. This was left behind by the senior elder before he left. It clearly states that he has completely severed all ties with the Jade Water Sword sect, and that whatever he did has nothing to do with us. Chu Kuangren did not even bother to look at the letter. You can say whatever you want since the person is dead. Not to mention one letter, even if you take out 10 or 100 of them, who knows if they're fake or not. The senior elder's Daoist rhyme is on this letter. It can't be faked. Heh, it's just a Daoist rhyme. What can it prove? Even if he really did write this letter, why didn't the Jade Water Sword sect announce it to the world at the first instance? Now that he's dead after causing a ruckus in the Black Heaven sect, you're only taking out this letter to shirk all responsibility. Do you really think it's that easy? Besides, if you're not guilty, why did you activate the sect's mega protective formation the moment we arrived? Chu Kuangren said coldly. The Jade Water Sword sect master's expression was extremely ugly. *CK, how could we not activate the mega protective formation when you're making such a big fuss about it? What if you suddenly attack? Of course, the Jade Water Sword sect master knew that it was useless to say anything like that. Chu Kuangren's attitude was already clear. No matter what they said or what so-called evidence they brought out, the Jade Water Sword sect only had two choices before them. They could either surrender and become a vassal, or they could destroy the entire sect. Seeing is believing. Chu Kuangren's reputation is indeed well-deserved. Just then, a burst of laughter rang out. Linghu's young emperor leaped into the air and exited the sect's mega-protective formation, arriving before Chu Kuangren. Suddenly, his expression changed and his pupils shrank as he stared at Chu Kuangren in fear. Only when he exited the mega-protective formation did he feel Chu Kuangren's terrifying sword-based Daoist rhyme. His heart shuddered. The Jade Water Sword sect is under the protection of the Linghu family. Linghu's young emperor also activated his Daoist rhyme and said coldly. Chu Kuangren glanced at him. You can represent the Linghu family? I'm the Linghu family's young emperor, Linghu Teng. Do you think I can represent the Linghu family? Linghu Teng said proudly. Oh, so you're a young emperor. Chu Kuangren came to a sudden realization. He then raised his hand and unleashed a palm attack. The violent palm energy blasted Linghu Teng hundreds of feet away. If your sage can't even protect the Jade Water Sword sect, what more a mere young emperor like you? Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Chu Kuangren. How dare you attack me? Linghu Teng's expression was cold as ice. A sword appeared in his hand and he raised his hand to unleash a slash. An incredibly sharp Daoist rhyme emanated as thousands of sword chi converged into a tornado that rushed towards Chu Kuangren. Chapter 175. The sword chi intertwined to form a violent tornado. Upon seeing that, Chu Kuangren raised his hand and unleashed a palm attack. The human mountain's strength instantly exploded and shattered the tornado of sword chi. What? Linghu Teng's expression changed in disbelief. I don't know where you get the courage to stand before me as a mere clone, Chu Kuangren said calmly. The Daoist runes in his eyes swirled as he analyzed Linghu Teng thoroughly. The one before him was not Linghu Teng's real body, but a clone that was created using a special technique. You can tell that this is a clone. Linghu Teng's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. Even the sect master of Jade Water could not tell that he was a clone, yet Chu Kuangren could. Even if this is a clone, I can still defeat you. Linghu Teng yelled as surges of sword chi flew out from his body. They intertwined around his body to form a giant sword shadow that radiated endless divine light towards Chu Kuangren. The power of that sword attack was enough to rival an honorable. A clone to defeat me? What kind of joke is that? Chu Kuangren raised his hand and gathered his spiritual power. The majestic earth chi turned into a godly mountain that crushed the sword chi and landed directly on Linghu Teng's body. A mist of blood erupted as Linghu Teng was blasted apart. Countless Jadewater sect disciples were horrified. Although Linghu Teng was just a clone, he was still extremely terrifying to them. Even the most outstanding Daoist of Jadewater sect did not stand a chance against him. However, he was blasted apart by Chu Kuangren with a single palm attack. Brother Linghu. In the crowd, Lu Yan's face was filled with grief and anger. Chu Kuangren had promised to bring her back to the Linghu clan. As long as she had the Linghu clan's help, her meteoric rise was just around the corner. However, all of that hope had vanished into thin air along with Chu Kuangren's palm attack. In the air, the sect master of Jadewater was also shocked by Chu Kuangren's shocking combat strength. As an honorable supreme, she knew that she would not be able to withstand Chu Kuangren's palm attack unscathed. Furthermore, that was not even Chu Kuangren's full strength. Perhaps not even half of it. Because his opponent had not even drawn his sword. The Linghu clan cannot protect the Jadewater sect. Now, make your choice. Chu Kuangren stood with his hands behind his back. Behind him, the group of Hall of Battle disciples unleashed their monstrous sword chi, pressuring the sect master. Under such circumstances, the expression of the sect master of the Green Water sect kept changing. In the end, he sighed helplessly. We submit. A wise move, Chu Kuangren said calmly. From the moment the head elder of the Jade Watersword sect had chosen to attack Honorable Xianxia, the fate of the Jade Watersword sect had been decided. Then, the Jade Water sect master activated the sect guarding formation, allowing the Black Heaven sect cultivators to enter. No one dared to stop them. What happened next was much simpler. The Jade Water sect opened their treasure vault, library, secret realms, and various other resources for Chu Kuangren and the others to take as much as they wanted. This was the price they had to pay. From then on, the Honorable Orthodoxy, Jade Water sect, would be reduced to a vassal of the Black Heaven sect. This news caused quite a commotion. Vermilion Bird Region. Inside the Linghu family's palace, a terrifying aura suddenly erupted. Chu Kuangren. You and I are irreconcilable. The maids and servants in the palace were all kneeling on the ground, trembling in fear. They did not know why the young emperor was so furious. In the room, Linghu Ting's face was so gloomy that it looked like it was about to drip water. Although Chu Kuangren had only killed his clone, that clone was something that he had painstakingly refined through his blood, sweat, and tears. Yet now, it had been destroyed by Chu Kuangren. More importantly, it had been destroyed with a single slap. This made him so frustrated that he almost vomited blood. Chu Kuangren, just you wait. Inside the Jade Water sect. Chu Kuangren was resting with his eyes closed. It would take a few more days to reorganize the entire Jade Water sect. He needed to have a complete grasp of the various treasures and disciples. Of course, these were not Chu Kuangren's concerns. The next day. Congratulations, host. You have drawn the legendary formation, the Four Seasons Sword Formation. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. A legendary formation? He retrieved the formation and a wave of enlightenment surged into his mind. Then, a joyful smile appeared on his face. What a powerful formation. The Four Seasons Sword Formation did not sound domineering, but its power was extremely terrifying and mysterious. After all, how could a legendary formation be simple? This formation was divided into 4 layers, namely the 4 seasons, the 12 months, the 24 solar terms, and the 365 days. It contained the mysteries of the changing seasons and the flow of time. The strength of this formation was also closely related to the user's cultivation level. The stronger the user's cultivation level, the more terrifying the formation's power. The 4 seasons require 4 swords to use, the 12 months require 12 swords, and so on. There are a total of 27 swords in the Sacred Emerald Sword case, enough for me to use the 3rd layer. With this sword formation, my combat strength can increase again. Chu Kuangren murmured. He was wondering how to use so many swords in the sword case, but now he had drawn a sword formation. At that moment, someone knocked on the door. Come in. A beautiful girl dressed in green walked in. Chu Kuangren frowned when he saw her. Who are you? Master, my name is Lu Yen. The sect leader asked me to serve you. Lu Yen looked at Chu Kuangren and said affectionately. She suddenly realized that compared to Linghu Teng, be it looks, strength, or status, Chu Kuangren was much more outstanding. If she could get close to him, it would be much better than following Linghu Teng. Serve me? I don't need it. You may leave. Master, are you dissatisfied with Lu Yen? No, I just don't need it. But this is the sect leader's arrangement. If I leave just like this, the sect leader will definitely punish me. Lu Yen was on the verge of tears. Chu Kuangren frowned. Leave. I'll talk to the sect leader of the Emerald Water sect. She won't punish you. Lu Yen gritted her teeth and left. Before she left, she bumped into Lan Yu. When she saw the young girl's stunning beauty, she felt a sense of inferiority. It's no wonder he doesn't like me. He has such a beauty by his side. Lu Yen thought to herself as she looked at Lan Yu with a hint of hostility. She then lowered her head and left. Lan Yu frowned slightly. Master, who is she? She was sent by the Emerald Water sect leader to serve me. I rejected her. Chu Kuangren said nonchalantly. I see. Lan Yu murmured, secretly keeping an eye on him. In the next few days, Lan Yu noticed that Lu Yan often appeared before Chu Kuangren. She even built up a good relationship with the Black Heaven sect disciples, asking them about Chu Kuangren's hobbies and habits. Lan Yu understood now. This woman was trying to seduce her master. Although Chu Kuangren was not interested in Lu Yan, Lan Yu was still a little annoyed. Especially after she received a certain piece of news, she could not hold it in any longer. Miss Lan Yu, I've made some pastries for Master Chu. I wonder if he's around? Outside Chu Kuangren's room, Lu Yan smiled sweetly as she held a wooden box in her hand. Lan Yu looked at her coldly and said, Master is not here. You don't have to come here anymore. Chapter 176. Lu Yan was stunned. What do you mean, Miss Lan Yu? I know what you're thinking. My master is not someone you can touch. Whether it's status or looks, you're not worthy of him. So you better watch yourself. Lan Yu said coldly. Lu Yan's expression turned sour. Of course I know Master Chu is of high status, but is it wrong to like someone? I just like him, that's why I'm being nice to him. I don't understand. Miss Lan Yu, why do you think I have ulterior motives? I know you like Master Chu too, but just because you like him, does that mean others are not allowed to like him? Lu Yan's voice was forceful as if she was fighting for her love. However, Lan Yu's gaze turned even colder. Gradually, a layer of frost covered her face. Shut up. Stop being so disgusting. First, everyone knows that my master is the fiancé of the Royal Azure Dynasty's fiancé. What you're doing is good to him. You're shameless enough to seduce a married man, yet you still dare to spout such nonsense. Second, you like my master? What about Ling Huteng? At the mention of Ling Huteng, Lu Yan's face turned pale. I heard that Ling Huteng came to Jadewater sect with his uncle, and within a few days, you were already with him. What a cunning move. Now that Ling Huteng is gone, you're eyeing my master, aren't you? What do you take my master for? Is he your tool to climb up the social ladder? B*TCH. That was what Lan Yu could not stand. She respected Chu Kuangren like a god, so how could she stand by and watch someone else use him and sully him in the name of liking him? You! How dare you insult me? Lu Yan was shocked. Insult you? I'm going to hit you. Lan Yu took a step forward, raised his right hand and sent a slap flying. With a slap, the man fell to the ground. Don't let me see you around my master again. Otherwise, it won't be as simple as this slap, Lan Yu said coldly. Lu Yan lay on the ground, her face filled with hatred. Then, as if she had seen someone, the hatred in her eyes receded and was replaced with a pitiful look as she looked behind Lan Yu. Lan Yu sensed something and looked behind her. Chu Kuangren walked towards them with a cold expression. Young master, I came to give you some pastries, but I don't know why Miss Lan Yu suddenly hit me. Lu Yan sobbed. Chu Kuangren's expression turned even colder when he heard that. Upon seeing that, Lu Yan secretly rejoiced. It seemed that her hard work over the past few days had paid off. Now that she had been beaten up, Chu Kuangren must be distressed. Judging by his expression, he would probably punish Lan Yu next. As long as he could get rid of Lan Yu, would he still have to worry about not being able to seduce Chu Kuangren? Thinking of this, Lu Yan seemed even more pitiful. Coupled with her red and swollen cheeks, she looked quite pitiful. Young master, Lan Yu, how's your hand? Does it hurt? Chu Kuangren said as he held Lan Yu's hand. Green Smoke, who was lying on the ground, suddenly stiffened. What the hell? I'm the one who's getting beaten up. Fear gradually appeared in Lu Yan's eyes. She realized that the development of the situation was completely different from what she had imagined. Young master, Lan Yu wanted to say something, such as explaining why she was against Lu Yan. Chu Kuangren said calmly, I know everything. He looked at Lu Yan on the ground with a cold gaze as if he was looking at an ant. He said, "I've warned you many times not to get close to me, but it's obvious that you didn't listen. This is the Jade Watersword sect, so let the sect master handle this." Then, Chu Kuangren turned around and left with Lan Yu. Young master, I really like you. I'm willing to be your slave and serve you," Lu Yan yelled from behind. She even wanted to rush up and grab Chu Kuangren, but she was sent flying by an invisible sword chi. She looked at Chu Kuangren's departing figure unwillingly. Why won't you even give me a chance? Am I so worthless in your eyes? D***amenit. D***amenit. Not long after, the Jade Watersword sect master arrived. She looked at Lu Yan's swollen cheeks and said, "I've told you before that Chu Kuangren is not a man you can covet. The difference between you and him is like the difference between heaven and earth. Your little tricks might work on Ling Huteng, but rumor has it that Chu Kuangren's Daoist core is rare. How could he be fooled by you?" Lu Yan was still unsatisfied. "I've miscalculated. I didn't think that Lan Yu would suddenly attack me. Even without Lan Yu, it would still be the same. Forget it, from today onwards, you shall leave the Jade Watersword sect," the sect master said. Lu Yan's expression changed. "Why?" "The Jade Watersword sect is now a vassal of the Black Heaven sect. Since you've offended Chu Kuangren, I can't let you stay here any longer. Pack up and leave the mountain tomorrow," the sect master said mercilessly. After she left, Lu Yan, who had yet to recover from her shock, was left behind. Her eyes were filled with hatred. Chu Kuangren, Lan Yu, soon, the matters at the Jade Watersword sect were almost settled. Chu Kuangren had also brought the group back to the Black Heaven sect. Back at the Black Heaven sect, Chu Kuangren found Honorable Xianxia and briefly told him about the reorganization of the Jade Watersword sect. "Yes, you've done well. There's one more thing I need to tell you. It's about the sword gauntlet," Honorable Xianxia said with a smile. "Sword gauntlet?" Chu Kuangren's heart skipped a beat. He remembered that the Black Heaven third forefather had asked the Linghu clan for a slot to enter the sword gauntlet. Even the Linghu clan sage was heartbroken. It was obvious that the sword gauntlet was not as simple as it seemed. The sword gauntlet is located in the hidden sword canyon at the border between the Scarlet Phoenix domain and the Azure Dragon domain. Legend has it that it used to be a place of preaching for an ancient orthodoxy. There are records of countless swordsmen's sword techniques and other opportunities of fortune. It opens once every 10 years, and there are only 30 slots each time. The One Sword sect and the Mountain sect each take 5 slots, while the remaining 10 slots are left for the other swordsmanship forces. Now that the sword gauntlet is about to open, I'd like you to bring Murong Xian, Nangong Huang, and the others to the hidden sword canyon to enter the sword gauntlet. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly after he heard that. Sure. He was also very interested in the sword gauntlet. Moreover, there would probably be a lot of swordsmanship elites who would come to the sword gauntlet. It was a good opportunity for him to take a look. Also, when you return, prepare to take over my position as the Black Heaven sect leader, Honorable Xianxia said. Chu Kuangren was stunned for a moment. The seventh forefather was right, Honorable Xianxia really wanted him to be the sect leader. Honorable teacher, can we talk about this? No. Honorable Xianxia said firmly, no one is more suitable than you to be the sect leader. No, I've only been the elder senior brother for a few years, and you suddenly want me to take over as the sect leader. I'm under a lot of pressure. What kind of pressure? Tell me, I'll help you settle it. The main thing is that I'm still inexperienced, and I don't have enough prestige. I'm afraid I won't be able to convince the masses, Chu Kuangren quickly said. It doesn't matter if you're inexperienced, you'll have the help of the elders. As for prestige, do you believe that if I spread the news that you're going to be the sect leader, everyone in the Black Heaven sect will raise their hands in approval? Your prestige is already higher than mine, and that's still not enough, Honorable Xianxia said impatiently. Is there anything else you want to say? Since you've already said everything, what else can I say? Chu Kuangren said helplessly. Chapter 177. On the way to the hidden sword canyon, Chu Kuangren sat on the ferry boat with his hand resting on his chin. He looked at the sea of clouds in front of him and sighed from time to time. Not far away, Murong Xian, Nangong Huang, and the others were watching. This is the 6th time. Murong Xian said. 6 sighs in an hour. Is big senior brother in trouble? Nangong Huang asked worriedly. It can't be, right? Eldest senior brother is so powerful. What kind of trouble could possibly stump him? Daoist Jun-yi was puzzled. Lan Yu happened to pass by them. Jun-yi hurriedly went up to her and asked, Lan Yu, do you know why senior brother sighed? Lan Yu pondered for a moment. Sigh, everyone looked at each other. No, why are you sighing? Young master, have some fruits. Lan Yu brought a plate of fruits to Chu Kuangren's side. Okay. Nangong Huang and the others gathered around Murong Xian. Under the crowds pushing and shoving, Murong Xian reluctantly walked out and said, eldest senior brother, have you encountered some trouble recently? Trouble? No, I'm eating well, dressing well, cultivating smoothly, and I'm getting more and more handsome. There's no trouble at all. That's not right. If there isn't any trouble, then why are you sighing here? Jun-yi said. Oh, you're talking about this. Chu Kuangren came to a sudden realization. He then shook his head and sighed. Sigh, now that you mention it, I feel a little helpless. Tell me, I'm still so young, yet my honorable teacher wants me to be the sect leader. Isn't this just nonsense? Hearing this, the few of them were stunned. What? That's it? Just where did you sigh for 2 hours? After all, there were many people who wanted to become a sect leader but failed, let alone the sect leader of a sage orthodoxy. This was a supreme glory. However, Chu Kuangren now had a look of disdain on his face. This made Murong Xian, Nangong Huang, and the others feel that it was ridiculous. I fully support eldest senior brother becoming the sect master. That's right. Be it prestige or strength, no one in the entire Black Heaven sect can compare to you, elder senior brother. It's only normal for you to be the sect leader. Nangong Huang and the others took it for granted. Upon seeing that, Chu Kuangren felt even more helpless. Is there a sect leader as young as me in this world? Hearing this, the crowd came back to their senses. Chu Kuangren was not even 20 years old this year. Not many sect leaders in the entire firmament star were as young as him. Not to mention being in charge of a sage orthodoxy. In that case, eldest senior brother might very well be the youngest leader of a sage orthodoxy in history. Heavens, this is way too impressive. As expected of eldest senior brother, you're amazing. Chu Kuangren was stunned. Why are you all more excited than me? Shouldn't you feel that it's inappropriate and then go back and ask the current sect leader not to pass the position to me? Sigh, I didn't expect that at such a young age, would have to bear so much pressure in addition to being handsome that my age shouldn't have. Chu Kuangren looked up and let out a long sigh. Hidden Sword Gorge was located at the border between the Vermilion Bird region and the Azure Dragon region. It was said that this place was once the teaching ground of an ancient sword Dao orthodoxy. Even though it was in ruins now, the Dao aura of many sword cultivators remained here, so there was an endless stream of sword cultivators that came here to observe. Especially since the sword gauntlet was about to open, the number of people who came here to watch the show was 10 times more than usual. Soon, Chu Kuangren and the others arrived. So this is the Hidden Sword Gorge. It really lives up to its name. Nangong Huang said in admiration. The Hidden Sword Gorge was huge, and the rock walls on both sides of the gorge were engraved with sword scars that emanated all kinds of mysterious Daoist rhymes. To a sword cultivator, this place was like a holy land. The sword gauntlet is located in the deepest part of the gorge. Eldest senior brother, should we go check it out first? Murong Xian said. All right. Chu Kuangren nodded, and the group walked towards the depths of the Hidden Sword Gorge. This group of people was very eye-catching. Especially Chu Kuangren, who was leading the group at the front. His extraordinary temperament made him the center of attention no matter where he went. Soon, someone guessed their identity. It's the people from the Black Heaven sect. So they're here too. TSK, the person walking at the front is so extraordinary. He must be the legendary Chu Kuangren. It must be him. Rumor has it that this person has sparred with sages and even killed honorable supremes. His strength is terrifying. Among the sky prides in the firmament star, I'm afraid not many can be compared to this person. This person is also known as the most promising person to become an emperor. The crowd discussed among themselves. Chu Kuangren did not care at all. He was used to the feeling of being the center of attention. As long as they did not suddenly rush up to him, he could ignore them. Compared to the crowd's discussion, he was more concerned about the countless sword scars on both sides of the gorge. Some of these sword scars were very old, and the remnant Daoist rhymes were also very thin. However, some of the sword scars were very new, as if they were freshly carved. Along the way, Chu Kuangren saw a sword cultivator who was trying to understand a sword scar. Then, he felt something and waved his sword, leaving a sword scar on the rock wall. It seems that the sword scars in this gorge are increasing by the minute. Chu Kuangren murmured. However, it was a pity that although there were many sword scars here, only a few of them could do anything to Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren's understanding of Dao techniques, especially sword Dao, was so deep that even an ordinary sage could not surpass him. The sword scars on the gorge were, at most, left behind by honorable supremes. How could they be of any use to him? I only hope that the sword gauntlet can give me some surprises. Chu Kuangren murmured. Gradually, Chu Kuangren felt an incredibly mysterious Daoist rhyme coming from the front. Then, he saw a tall black building. The building was 99 feet tall and had a total of 50 floors. It had sharp edges and was as straight as a sword. At the entrance of the building, there was a plaque with the words, "Sword Gauntlet," engraved on it. Every stroke of the plaque looked as if it was carved by a sword, and it exuded an incredibly cold sword-based Daoist rhyme. The Daoist rhyme that Chu Kuangren felt from afar was emitted from these two words. It was just two words, but it far surpassed the countless sword scars in the gorge. Chu Kuangren stared at the two words. In a trance, he seemed to see a white-robed man performing a sword dance in front of him, and sword chi surged in all directions. Chu Kuangren's body trembled slightly as his sword-based Daoist rhyme emanated and rushed towards the two words. It was as if he had crossed countless years to clash with the white-robed man across time and space. When the two sword-based Daoist rhymes met and collided, the entire hidden sword canyon shook. The Daoist rhymes on the countless sword scars on the walls were disrupted, and some of the weaker ones even collapsed. Hence, everyone was shocked as they did not know what was happening. Only a few strong swordsman cultivators who were closer to the sword gauntlet noticed something as they stared at Chu Kuangren's back in horror. He's resonating with the sword gauntlet's Daoist rhyme. This situation is like two great sword sages sparring in front of us. How did Chu Kuangren do it? The rumors are true. This person can really spar with a sage. So this is the sword gauntlet. This trip was not in vain. Chu Kuangren smiled and retracted his gaze. The sword-based Daoist rhyme around him dissipated, and he no longer looked at the two words. Chapter 178. Outside the sword gauntlet, Chu Kuangren crossed swords with the nameless swordsman who wrote the words, "Sword Gauntlet." The Daoist rhymes that they released affected the entire hidden sword canyon. Everyone who witnessed this scene was extremely shocked. Some of the strong sword cultivators pondered for a while before they went up to greet him. Rumor has it that the Black Heaven sect's lead disciple is extraordinary. It seems that you are indeed extraordinary. I'm the Sword Spectrum 61 Moon Chaser Sword. Greetings. Black Heaven sect's lead disciple, I'm Li Zhen. Black Heaven sect's lead disciple, we've met before in Sword Prayer City. Brother Chu, I trust you've been well. The sword cultivators outside the sword gauntlet greeted Chu Kuangren one by one. They seemed very enthusiastic, unwilling to let go of the opportunity to make friends with Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren smiled and greeted them one by one politely. It was obvious that he was already familiar with this kind of scene. At that moment, a figure entered the crowd. It was a middle-aged man in a luxurious robe. Unlike the other sword cultivators, he had a kind of merchant aura about him. He smiled at Chu Kuangren and said, "Brother Chu, based on past experience, the sword gauntlet will only open in a few days. If you don't mind, why don't you stay at my place for a while?" I'm Qian Fugui. I've opened a famed sword inn in the hidden sword canyon. It specializes in providing food and shelter for sword cultivators. Oh. Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. Then I'll do as you say. Come, fellow Daoists from the Black Heaven sect, please follow me. Qian Fugui yelled and led the way. The surrounding sword cultivators could not help but discuss among themselves. TSK, this Qian Fugui sure moves fast. He's already hooked up with Chu Kuangren. As expected of a businessman. Of course. Who do you think Chu Kuangren is? He's the number one in the 100-sword spectrum. If we can build a good relationship with someone like him, there's nothing to lose. Along the way, Qian Fugui introduced Chu Kuangren and the others to the various sceneries in the hidden sword canyon, especially where the most mysterious sword scars were the easiest to understand. He was very familiar with the hidden sword canyon. Brother Qian, do you live in the hidden sword canyon? That's not it. I just opened a restaurant here and hired a few people to look after it. However, every time the sword tower opens, it's also the time when business is at its peak. So, I come over to take a look personally. Over time, I became familiar with the hidden sword gorge. Chu Kuangren finally understood. I see. When they arrived at Qian Fugui's restaurant, everyone couldn't help but be surprised. But how was this a restaurant? This was clearly a royal palace. Rows upon rows of pavilions rose from the ground, covering a vast area that was comparable to the White Jade Hotel that Chu Kuangren had been to in the past. To be able to open such a restaurant here, the amount of manpower and resources required was definitely not ordinary. Moreover, it was even more difficult to guard this restaurant. If one was not careful, they might even bring about a fatal disaster. This Qian Fugui was not simple. Chu Kuangren activated his eye of revelation and glanced at his opponent. Qian Fugui, the owner of the Fugui firm. He controls 1/10 of the Firmament Star's spirit stone reserves, and his businesses are spread across the 4 domains of the firmament. When he saw the feedback from the eye of revelation, Chu Kuangren's mouth twitched. It was the owner of the Fugui Trading Company. The Fugui Trading Company was the largest trading company in Firmament Star. They could be found in almost every industry that could earn soul stones. However, no one knew who the owner was. But now, such a person was standing in front of him. He had to admit that it was really a coincidence. Qian Fugui arranged a few rooms for Chu Kuangren and the others. All they had to do now was to wait for the sword gauntlet to open. Chu Kuangren, I'm Murong Feiyu. I'm here to learn from you. Today, a voice came from outside the famed sword restaurant. A man in a black robe with a long sword in his hand was standing outside the famed sword restaurant. His voice echoed throughout the restaurant. All the sword cultivators noticed and quickly looked over. When they heard the name of the person, they could not help but be shocked. It's him, Murong Feiyu. Oh, this name sounds familiar. I think he's the honorable swordsman who's ranked 71st in the sword spectrum. He's from the Murong family. The Murong family of the Black Warrior domain. One of the 1 mountain, 1 sect, and 2 families. Looks like we're in for a good show. The sword cultivators in the restaurant were watching the situation unfold. Nangong Huang and the others heard the voice too. They looked at Murong Feiyu outside the door with displeasure in their eyes. Who is this person? How dare he challenge elder senior brother? He's ranked 71st in the sword spectrum. My goodness, how dare he challenge elder senior brother who's ranked 1st? Where did he get the guts from? Not everyone knows what elder senior brother is capable of. Most people think that elder senior brother is ranked first in the sword spectrum because his descendant self-sword has merged with a sword soul, giving him an advantage. That's why they're unhappy with elder senior brother. This person must be one of them. Nangong Huang said slowly. Beside him, Murong Xian looked at Murong Feiyu with a strange look in his eyes. He looked a little unnatural. What's wrong with you? Nangong Huang noticed that something was wrong with Murong Xian and could not help but be surprised. No, nothing. Murong Xian shook his head and continued, Murong Feiyu's strength is not ordinary. He became an honorable many years ago and cultivates the Murong clan's fiery sword technique. Its power is enough to burn rivers and boil seas. He's also an expert in the Murong clan. However, this is not the most troublesome thing. The most troublesome thing is that the person behind this person is the Murong clan's young emperor, Murong Yu. Murong Xian suddenly realized that Nangong Huang and the others were looking at him strangely. He immediately stopped and asked, "What's wrong with you guys? Murong Xian, why are you so familiar with the Murong clan? Wait, your surname is also Murong. Could it be, I have nothing to do with the Murong clan?" Murong Xian said resolutely. Oh. The crowd responded and did not pursue the matter. Murong Xian also came back to his senses. He knew that his firm denial just now was rather revealing. He said, "These are matters of the swordsmanship world. As sword cultivators, shouldn't we know more about it? We're in the Azure Dragon domain while the Murong clan is in the Black Warrior domain. We're so far away. Who would know so much about it?" Jun Yi murmured. "Look, it's Miss Lan Yu," Nangong Huang said. Lan Yu slowly walked out of the restaurant with a sword in her arms. She stopped in front of Murong Feiyu and said, "So you're the one who challenged Master?" Murong Feiyu stared at the sword in Lan Yu's arms with a fiery gaze. "I'm the one who challenged Chu Kuangren." "Miss, the sword in your arms is very extraordinary. Can I have a look at it?" Lan Yu shook her head. "No, this is Master's sword." "Oh, where's Chu Kuangren now?" "Master is still meditating, but you're too noisy, so he asked me to bring my sword out. He said that he'll show himself if you can take a blow from him. He's not here, so how can I use my sword? Is he messing with me?" Murong Feiyu said coldly. "I can use my sword," Lan Yu said calmly. Then, the descendant's self-sword in her arms trembled slightly. With a clang, half of its jade-like body was revealed, and a terrifying sword-based Daoist rhyme emanated. Chapter 179. The descendant's self-sword trembled slightly, revealing half of its blade. Then, a terrifying sword-based Daoist rhyme emanated, and a bright sword ray shot out from the blade. The sword ray locked onto Murong Feiyu, making it hard for him to dodge. Not good. Murong Feiyu instantly made a decision. He unsheathed his longsword and unleashed his Daoist rhyme, unleashing a wave of heat. However, the sword ray tore through the wave of heat and landed on his body, tearing apart his spiritual energy barrier and sending him flying dozens of feet away. How is this possible? Murong Feiyu spat out a mouthful of blood as he lay on the ground with a pale face. His eyes were filled with horror. Lan Yu glanced at him and shook her head. "This is only a third of Master's sword chi, yet you can't even handle it. What right do you have to challenge Master? Leave now." Lan Yu then carried the sheathed descendant's self-sword and left. So this is the Murong clan's honorable swordsman. He's nothing special. How pitiful. He came to challenge him, but he couldn't even handle half of his sword chi. This Chu Kuangren is really scary. Could it be that Murong Feiyu is too weak? That's possible. Murong Feiyu's expression turned uglier as he listened to the whispers around him. Moreover, he was defeated so easily without even seeing Chu Kuangren. The more he thought about it, the more indignant he felt. "Stop right there. Leave your sword behind." Murong Feiyu yelled and leaped into the air. Sword-based Daoist rhyme emanated from his body and formed a raging wave of fire towards Lan Yu. However, Lan Yu's back was facing him at that moment. The crowd could not help but curse at how shameless he was. Trying to steal the sword just because he can't win? How shameless. Is this how the Murong clan does sneak attacks? Some people closed their eyes as they could not bear to see a beauty like Lan Yu perish just like that. However, at that moment, the descendant's self-sword in Lan Yu's arms trembled and was unsheathed with a clang. An unparalleled sword ray was unleashed. The sword chi contained a destructive sword-based Daoist rhyme that tore through the wave of fire. A mist of blood exploded in the air. Murong Feiyu was sliced in half by the sword ray. With a buzzing sound, the Kunwu's sword returned to its scabbard. The sharp sword Daoist rhyme that filled the sky dissipated, and everything returned to normal. If not for Murong Feiyu's corpse on the ground, everyone would have suspected that they were hallucinating. This is the remaining 2/3 of the sword chi. A sneak attack from the back is despicable. You deserve to die. After Lan Yu finished speaking, he hugged his sword and left without looking back. Everyone who had intended to watch a good show was stunned on the spot. They couldn't help but gasp in shock. A single sword chi was used twice. 1/3 to defeat a supremacy, 2/3 to kill a supremacy. F***ck, what kind of operation is this? It was too terrifying. Chu Kuangren hasn't even shown himself, but a single sword chi alone has such terrifying power. Just how powerful is he? Too strong. Being ranked first in the sword spectrum isn't a joke. Awesome, awesome. Among all the Sky Prides who came to the Hidden Sword Canyon this time, Chu Kuangren's strength is probably the strongest. How terrifying. I think so too. The sword cultivators who were secretly observing were all very surprised. They did not expect an honorable to be easily killed by a single sword chi without even seeing Chu Kuangren's face. This kind of strength was too shocking. Inside a private room, the atmosphere was a little tense. Streaks of fine sword chi were moving around inside the room, destroying everything around it. Not a single wine glass or table was spared, and even the walls were slashed with sword marks. These sword chi originated from a young man in the room. This young man was wearing a long black robe. His black hair reached his waist, and his brows were long and narrow, making him look a little mean. At that moment, his face was filled with a gloomy expression. Chu Kuangren. How dare he kill my people? This person was Murong Feiyu's follower. The Murong clan's young emperor, Murong Yu. Young emperor, do you want to deal with this person now? Behind Murong Yu, a grey-robed elder said with a cold gaze. Murong Feiyu was a follower of Murong Yu, and the two of them had a good relationship. Now that he was killed, he also hated Chu Kuangren to the core. The sword gauntlet is about to open. I need to recuperate and prepare to attack the sword gauntlet. Revenge will have to wait. Murong Yu gritted his teeth and said. The sword gauntlet was of great importance. His clan sage once said that the last floor of the sword gauntlet hid a great opportunity of fortune. Compared to that opportunity of fortune, revenge was insignificant. D****, I wanted Feiyu to test Chu Kuangren's strength, but I didn't expect this to happen. This Chu Kuangren is really a strong opponent. Although Murong Yu hated him, he had to admit Chu Kuangren's strength. If they were to fight, he might not win. By the way, young emperor, there's another news. Speak. Someone saw the Murong clan's third young master with Chu Kuangren. He's now a Daoist of the Black Heaven sect. Upon hearing that, Murong Yu's eyes were filled with surprise. He then sneered and said, what an unexpected gain. I can't believe that bastard has gone to the Black Heaven sect after so many years without any news. This trip to the Sword Gauntlet is getting more and more interesting. The number of forces in the Hidden Sword Canyon was increasing. Sword cultivators from the one mountain, one sect, and two families arrived one after another. Besides the four most famous swordsmanship forces, there were also representatives from other top-notch forces. These sword cultivators gathered together. Although there were occasional conflicts, there were no major battles. Everyone was waiting for the sword gauntlet to open. Chu Kuangren had been idle for the past few days. After he killed Murong Feiyu, no one came to challenge him anymore. Although there were occasionally arguments about him being ranked number 1 in the 100-sword spectrum, it was not a big deal and did not affect him. Boom! On that day, a ray of sword chi suddenly shot up into the sky. In an instant, the entire hidden sword canyon trembled. The Daoist rhymes in the countless sword marks trembled as if they were about to burst out from the sword marks. All the sword cultivators sensed it and looked towards the direction of the sword gauntlet. The sword gauntlet is open. One by one, the cultivators rushed towards the sword gauntlet. Most of the sword cultivators were repelled by an invisible force field when they got close to the sword gauntlet, unable to enter. What's going on? Why can't I get in? Many people's expressions changed as they were shocked. Some of the honorables did not believe it and tried to break through the force field by force. However, they were blasted away by an invisible force. This is a barrier set up by a few sages. How dare a mere honorable try to break through it? Someone could not help but sneer. It's a sage? That's right. The sages behind the one mountain, one sect, and 2 families are stopping us from entering the sword gauntlet. Every time the sword gauntlet opens, only 30 people are allowed to enter. How can they let small fries get their hands on it? A sword cultivator who knew the inside story sneered. This is too overbearing. Why can they occupy the sword gauntlet and not allow us to enter? Another sword cultivator said unhappily. Why? Because they're sages. Everyone could not help but fall silent when they heard that. Such was the way of the world. Being weak was a sin. Only those with bigger fists could reason. Most mortals were like that, let alone the cultivators who valued strength. Chapter 180. The sword gauntlet was opened, and the sword chi soared into the sky like rainbows. The saints behind the one mountain, one sect, and 2 clans made their move, setting up a restriction that made it difficult for outsiders to approach. Not long after, the disciples of the various sage orthodoxies arrived. The first to arrive were the people from the Murong clan. Murong Yu led a few of the Murong clan's disciples who were qualified to enter the sword gauntlet. Next was the Linghu family, Tempest Mountain. Chu Kuangren had also arrived with Nangong Huang and the others. They attracted a lot of attention when they arrived, and most of them were focused on Chu Kuangren, who was standing at the front of the group. A few days ago, the news of Chu Kuangren killing an honorable with 2/3 of his sword chi had spread far and wide, causing quite a stir in the hidden sword canyon. The prodigies of the various orthodoxies were extremely curious about him. This person is Chu Kuangren, the top student in the sword spectrum. Truly extraordinary. It's rumored that this person's battle prowess is unparalleled, and he can easily kill supremes, or even supremes. It seems like he's going to be our greatest enemy this time. There were also some female cultivators whose eyes lit up when they saw Chu Kuangren. They suddenly felt that all the men around them were not worth mentioning at all. In the direction of Tempest Mountain, a swordsman who was dressed in plain clothes and carrying a sword stared at Chu Kuangren with a battle intent in his eyes. Chu Kuangren noticed her gaze and looked over as well. However, his gaze was different from that of the plain-clothed swordsman, which was filled with fighting intent. His expression was very calm, and he only took a glance before shifting his gaze. Oh, is he disdainful? The plain-clothed swordsman raised his eyebrows. Many of the surrounding sword cultivators also noticed this scene. TSK, the Tempest Mountain's lunatic swordsman has his eyes on Chu Kuangren now. Jian lunatic's strength is not simple. Rumor has it that he has defeated a few ancient geniuses and is crazy about swords. His strength is extremely terrifying. Before Chu Kuangren entered the world, the older generation of sword cultivators once said that this person's sword Dao was the best among the younger generation. Everyone discussed in private. Lunatic Jian, whose real name was Ling Feng, was the young emperor of Tempest Mountain. Among all the young emperors, his strength was definitely in the top 5. Because he was crazy about swords, he was passionate about challenging swordsmen. He did not even let the older generation of swordsmen go, so he was known as the sword lunatic. Chu Kuangren was not interested in this so-called lunatic swordsman. Just now, he had used the Eye of Revelation to scan the area and realized that none of the Skyprides present could make him worry. On the contrary, his own team was a little strange. Murong, what's wrong? Chu Kuangren looked at Murong Xian and asked. Ever since they arrived at the sword gauntlet, Murong Xian had been hiding at the back of the group as if he was unwilling to face anyone. Nothing. Murong Xian shook his head. Yo, isn't this young Master Murong? At this moment, a ruminating voice came from the Murong family's camp. A young man walked out and looked at Murong Xian. Young Master Murong, it's been so many years since we last saw you. We thought that you had died somewhere in a corner. Who would have thought that you'd run off to the Black Heaven sect? Chu Kuangren was a little surprised. He did not expect Murong Xian to have some kind of entanglement with the Murong family. Murong Hai, what do you want? Murong Xian said with an ugly expression. Nothing much. I just wanted to say a few words to your brothers. Judging from their expressions, I guess they still don't know that you're the daughter of a lowly servant girl from the Murong family, Murong Hai said playfully. Behind him, a few disciples of the Murong family looked at Murong Xian's ugly expression as if they were watching a good show. A young master born to a lowly servant girl. Unable to survive in the Murong family, he ran off to the Black Heaven sect to become a Daoist. Speaking of which, the Black Heaven sect is really too much. How dare you take in all kinds of trash? While Murong Hai was speaking, a majestic Daoist rhyme suddenly erupted beside him. His expression changed as he tried to activate his Daoist rhyme to resist it. However, that majestic Daoist rhyme turned into a godly mountain and instantly slammed onto his body. The violent force immediately sent him flying hundreds of feet away. He tumbled on the ground for a dozen times before he smashed into the cliff wall of the canyon. Why are you chattering like a fly? How annoying. Chu Kuangren slowly fiddled with his fingers. Daoist rhymes were still circulating around his fingertips. It was obvious that he was the one who attacked just now. Chu Kuangren, how dare you? How dare you attack a sage? D*****. The people of the Murong family immediately glared at Chu Kuangren. Waves of Daoist rhymes erupted towards them. However, when Chu Kuangren's eyes turned cold, a surge of sword-based Daoist rhyme that was far more terrifying than theirs surged and dispersed their Daoist rhymes like a tsunami. Every disciple of the Murong family turned pale. You're the ones who are being presumptuous. I don't care what kind of conflict Murong Xian has with the Murong family, but he is now a Daoist of the Black Heaven sect. There's no doubt about that. Insulting him is equivalent to provoking the Black Heaven sect. Based on that alone, I'm already giving face to the Murong family sage by not killing him on the spot. If you still can't control your mouth, I'll kill you. Chu Kuangren's words were as sharp as a knife, and his gaze was as sharp as a sword. His words left the people of the Murong family speechless as their expressions changed. Meanwhile, Nangong Huang, Jun Yi, and the others stood beside Chu Kuangren and stared coldly at the people of the Murong family. Their stance was clear. Murong Xian was not to be insulted, and the Black Heaven sect was even more so. Alright, stop messing around. At that moment, a voice came from the void. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. That was a sage. Young people always like to mess around. Oh, challenging the Black Heaven sect is considered as messing around? Two more sages' voices were heard. Chu Kuangren remembered one of them was the Black Heaven Third Forefather's voice. Brother Third Daoist, do you still want to pursue this matter? Humph, you should be glad that Kuangren is merciful and only gave that filthy young man a slap. Otherwise, I'll definitely kill him. The Black Heaven Third Forefather snorted. When everyone heard that, they looked at the half-dead Murong Hai who had been slammed into the rock wall. They could not help but shiver. TSK, how merciful. I only beat him half to death. Buzz. At that moment, the void trembled. Not far away, the sword chi from the sword gauntlet retracted, and the long sealed door of the sword gauntlet opened with a creak. An ancient and sharp Daoist rhyme emanated from it. Everyone looked at the sword gauntlet. The sword gauntlet has opened. Let them in. The sage's voice rang out again. After that, the people from Tempest Mountain were the first to enter, followed by the representatives from the other orthodoxies. Only 30 people were allowed to enter the sword gauntlet. The one mountain, one sect, and 2 families each had 5, while the remaining 10 were distributed among the other forces. However, things were a little different today. Everyone noticed that only 4 people from the Linghu family had entered the sword gauntlet. The other person was nowhere to be found. Let's go. Chu Kuangren patted Murong Xian's shoulder and said, "We'll talk about your matters later. Now, let's enter the sword gauntlet." "Yes, elder senior brother." Murong Xian nodded. The group then walked towards the sword gauntlet. There were a total of 6 people from the Black Heaven sect who entered the sword gauntlet. When everyone thought about the Linghu family losing a spot, and then saw that the Black Heaven sect had an extra spot, they suddenly had some guesses. TSK, looks like the Black Heaven sect has something on the Linghu family that they're willing to give up a spot. Interesting. I wonder if anyone can reach the top of the sword gauntlet this year. Chapter 181. In front of the sword gauntlet, a group of swordsmanship skyprides were staring at the tower. As they got closer, they could feel the mysterious Daoist rhymes contained within the sword gauntlet. It was something they could not comprehend. However, the people of the Linghu clan were not in the mood to understand such mysteries. They could not understand it anyway. Instead, they heard the comments of the people around them, which made their faces turn ugly. The other skyprides looked at them mockingly. Obviously, the fact that the Linghu clan had one less slot made them think of something and they were gloating. Chu Kuangren. The Linghu young emperor, Linghu Teng, stared at Chu Kuangren with hatred in his eyes. To him, it was all Chu Kuangren's fault. Not only that, but the clone that he had refined was also destroyed by Chu Kuangren. This made him hate Chu Kuangren to the extreme. Chu Kuangren also noticed Linghu Teng's hatred towards him, and he smirked. "Oh, isn't this the one that I've destroyed?" Everyone looked at him curiously. It seems that Linghu Teng has some history with Chu Kuangren. Could it be related to the Linghu clan losing a slot this time? Who knows? Linghu Teng said coldly after hearing Chu Kuangren's words, "That was just a clone of mine." "You're so happy just because you killed a clone of mine?" Chu Kuangren. "If your clone is so weak, how strong can your real body be? Do you want to try? If you don't want to challenge the sword gauntlet, I don't mind destroying you here and now." Chu Kuangren laughed. That's enough. Let's enter the sword gauntlet." Linghu Teng wanted to say something but was stopped by third forefather Linghu. He glared at Chu Kuangren and then led the few skyprides of the Linghu clan into the sword gauntlet. The others entered one by one. "Chu Kuangren, I look forward to a battle with you once we're out of the sword gauntlet." Tempest Mountain's lunatic swordsman said to Chu Kuangren. "Do whatever you want." Chu Kuangren smiled. There was one more thing that he did not say. "Do whatever you want, I'm invincible." Everyone entered the sword tower one by one, and with every additional person that entered, there would be an additional dot of light in the pitch-black floor of the sword tower. That dot of light represented the sword cultivators who had entered. At this moment, these light spots were all gathered on the first floor, and each light spot had a unique aura of each person. With just a little bit of perception, one could tell who was who. Chu Kuangren and the others entered the sword gauntlet too. Chu Kuangren was surprised. The moment he entered the sword gauntlet, he realized that Nangong Huang and the others had disappeared. He was the only one left. Is this some kind of spatial mechanism? Everyone will be assigned to a different space, but they will all be in the same sword tower. The person who built the sword tower is very familiar with the use of spatial power. This person must be at least at the level of a saint king. Chu Kuangren muttered. Cultivators could come into contact with and use the power of space at the Dongshu realm, but that was only the most basic use. For example, the War King domain used a certain amount of spatial power. The further one went, the more profound the Tao of space became. Very few people could walk the path of the Tao of space to the end. Chu Kuangren stopped thinking about it. He saw a flight of stairs not far away. This should be the stairs to the second floor. Chu Kuangren slowly walked up, but he realized that there was a barrier in front of him. Is this the test? Chu Kuangren casually unleashed a palm attack. A majestic Daoist rhyme erupted and easily destroyed the barrier. Chu Kuangren then walked towards the second floor. Next, Chu Kuangren realized that there was such a barrier between every floor, and it was getting stronger as the floor increased. However, this was nothing to Chu Kuangren. With a palm attack, not a single barrier could stop him. He was ascending at a terrifying speed. Outside the sword gauntlet, the crowd was dumbfounded as they watched the light spot that belonged to Chu Kuangren rapidly ascending. He's ascending way too fast. He's already on the 8th floor. As expected of Chu Kuangren. He's really powerful. Wait a minute. Look, besides Chu Kuangren, lunatic swordsmen, Murongyu, and Linghu Teng are also ascending very quickly. They're following closely behind Chu Kuangren. This time, there are really a lot of talented swordsmen. That's right. The sages who were secretly observing were not surprised by this scene. The first few floors are just appetizers. The later floors are the real highlight. From the 20th floor onward, things won't be so simple anymore. Yeah, let's see how far they can go. This is the sword gauntlet's biggest opportunity of fortune. No one has been able to obtain it for so many years. I wonder if anyone will be able to do it this time. These sages were all sky prides when they were young. They had entered the sword gauntlet before, so they were quite familiar with it. On the 20th floor of the sword gauntlet. At that moment, a person appeared in front of Chu Kuangren. It was a faceless swordsman with a blank face. Oh, there's a change. Chu Kuangren's interest was piqued. When the faceless swordsman sensed Chu Kuangren's arrival, he charged towards Chu Kuangren with his sword, and a powerful sword chi instantly erupted. Chu Kuangren still raised his hand and unleashed a palm attack. The human mountain stamp shattered the faceless swordsman, and after the swordsman exploded, it turned into countless sword chi that dissipated. An existence formed by the condensation of sword chi. Intrigued, Chu Kuangren then proceeded to the next floor. After the 20th floor, Chu Kuangren encountered faceless swordsmen formed by sword chi. These people's strength gradually increased from the battle monarch realm, and by the 38th floor, they were already at the honorable realm. Is this really a test for sky prides? TSK, isn't this a little too strict? I'm already at the honorable realm. Chu Kuangren raised his hand and smashed the honorable realm cultivator into pieces. Among the younger generation, not many people possessed the combat strength of an honorable realm cultivator, and this was only the 38th floor. There were still 12 more floors. When he stepped onto the 39th floor, he did not encounter any obstacles this time. However, there were some changes to the staircase. Murals began to appear on both sides of the staircase. For example, the 39th floor had a mural of a mountain. Upon closer inspection, it contained a surge of Daoist rhyme, as if it recorded some mysterious sword Dao technique that could subconsciously captivate one. At the entrance of the staircase, there was a line of words. Only by understanding a trace of the mural's Daoist rhyme can one proceed to the next floor. Chu Kuangren had the meditational clarity attribute, and his own Dao technique realm was no weaker than a sage's, so he quickly understood the mural. What was recorded inside was a sage technique. It was the same on the 40th floor. If we go further up, is there a sage technique recorded on every floor staircase? Is this purely a test of our comprehension? No, that's not right. There's also the Daoist core. If one's comprehension isn't strong enough and can't understand the Daoist rhyme contained in the sage technique, they won't be able to proceed to the next floor. However, if one's Daoist core isn't strong enough and is too engrossed in the sage technique, they won't be able to proceed to the next floor. Comprehension and Daoist core are both indispensable. Chu Kuangren murmured. The person who built the sword gauntlet was truly ingenious. They've reached the part with the murals on the staircase. Back then, I couldn't pass because I was too engrossed in the sage technique. Outside the sword gauntlet, a sage said. It's the same for me. 2 hours. If you stay in the staircase for more than 2 hours, you'll be considered a failure and be teleported out of the sword gauntlet. This stage is too difficult. A sage shook his head and sighed. As soon as he finished, a white light flashed at the entrance of the sword gauntlet, and a young man was teleported out. He looked around blankly before his expression turned grim. I've failed. Chapter 182. Look, it's the Murong family. He failed. 38th floor. He was defeated on the 38th floor. When everyone saw the person who was teleported out, they began to discuss spiritedly. Right after the Murong family member, a few other people were sent out one after another. They looked at each other in dismay and helplessness was written all over their faces. Too difficult. That's right. I have to face a supreme being on the 38th floor. How can I, a mere battle king, fight them? It's really too difficult. TSK, I wonder how those young emperors fought their way through. Look, Chu Kuangren is in the lead now. I'm not surprised. A few more white lights flashed, and a few more people were teleported out. They were all geniuses from sage orthodoxies. Damn it, I'm so close to comprehending the sage technique's Daoist rhyme. I'm so close. A prodigy from Tempest Mountain said with extreme hatred. To be able to comprehend a sage technique in 2 hours, even if one only needed a trace of Daoist rhyme to pass, it was still too difficult. Not many prodigies could do it. Look, Chu Kuangren has reached the 45th floor. Oh my God. At this moment, someone exclaimed. The light that represented Chu Kuangren was far ahead of everyone else. How could he be so fast? Linghu Teng, Murongyu, and Jian Lunatic are only on the 40th floor. A prodigy asked in confusion. Have you guys heard of the rumor that Chu Kuangren managed to gain insight into the Steel Forest's 8,000 methods in half a day 3 years ago? Yes, yes. No wonder he could rise so quickly. This guy's comprehension ability is simply not on the same level as ours. How terrifying. Inside the sword gauntlet, Chu Kuangren had the rocksteady Daoist core and the meditational clarity of self as he climbed up like a hot knife through butter. Very soon, he arrived at the 48th floor. This was the highest level that the previous challengers of the Sword Tower could reach. Ever since the Sword Tower appeared, no one had been able to break through it. Just as Chu Kuangren arrived at the 48th floor, an incredibly sharp sword-based Daoist rhyme suddenly locked onto him. A faceless swordsman in white stood in front of him. Chu Kuangren frowned. Oh, this again. He lifted his hand and blasted out a palm strike. A majestic Daoist rhyme erupted and crushed towards the faceless swordsman. However, his opponent lifted his sword and easily tore the palm energy apart. Upon seeing that, Chu Kuangren chuckled and said, "That's more like it." With a clang, the Kunwu's sword at his waist was unsheathed. An extremely majestic and sharp Daoist rhyme spread. The faceless swordsman seemed to have sensed the threat as his aura continued to rise. This swordsman can actually adjust his strength according to my strength? That's just too shameless. Chu Kuangren rolled his eyes. No wonder no one had managed to pass the 48th floor in so many years. This faceless swordsman adjusts his power according to your strength. If you are strong, he will be stronger than you. What was there to fight? He might as well just raise his hands and surrender. But this is where the fun of the challenge comes in. A glint flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes as he made the first move. The two of them collided with each other. Terrifying sword Daoist rhymes collided with each other. Sword chi spread out and impacted the entire sword tower in a frenzy. Outside the sword tower, everyone was puzzled. I don't know if it was just my imagination, but I felt the sword tower tremble just now. Hey, you felt it too? Me too. What's going on? The source of the tremor is coming from the 48th floor. Is Chu Kuangren fighting someone? TSK, the 48th floor. No one has ever been able to pass it since the sword tower was created. I wonder if Chu Kuangren can break the record and create a miracle. The sages were also staring intently at the 48th floor. Now, only Chu Kuangren was on the 48th floor. The other sky prides, including the 3 young emperors, were all in the murals. The 48th floor's trial is too terrifying. That swordsman can increase his combat strength infinitely and will always be stronger than you. There's no way to pass it. One of the sages shook his head and said. That's right. I wonder if Chu Kuangren has any ideas? Inside the sword tower, Chu Kuangren unleashed his heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique. The majestic emperor's aura filled the air and shocked the entire sword tower. Even an honorable supreme would not be able to withstand that attack. However, the sword chi on the faceless swordsman condensed and unleashed a sword attack. The majestic sword chi was no weaker than Chu Kuangren's. In fact, it was even stronger. When the two forces collided, Chu Kuangren was pushed back a few meters. This was the first time Chu Kuangren felt fear since he entered the realm. It was not fear, but excitement. Honorable supremes are no match for me. I can even kill honorable supremes, and none of the sky prides of my generation are worthy of my attention. I can't defeat a sage, and no one below the sage level can defeat me either. I've never been able to fight to my heart's content. Today, I can finally fight to my heart's content. Chu Kuangren was not afraid that he would die here. Not to mention his immortal body, the sword tower had some kind of protection mechanism that would teleport him away if he was in danger. Chu Kuangren gripped his descendant's self-sword tightly and dashed out. All kinds of techniques were unleashed from his hands. Heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique, white lotus light of purification, phantom light strike, human mountain stamp, each of them was a shocking cultivation technique in the outside world. 9 Heaven Sword Prison, Green Lotus Sword Song, Sword of the Heavens, the 3 great Daoist physique transformations were unleashed. The 5 supreme foundation levels within his body radiated with a dazzling divine light. Spiritual power whizzed out of his body and crazily slammed into the void. At this moment, Chu Kuangren was like a godly king of swords. Every move he made had a terrifying power that could destroy the world. However, the sword chi that the faceless swordsman emitted was also very terrifying. The stronger Chu Kuangren became, the stronger he became. There were a few times when Chu Kuangren almost could not hold on anymore. However, throughout the battle, he was highly focused. His nerves were stretched taut, and he was constantly in a high-pressure state. During this process, he felt that he had become more proficient in using Dao techniques, and the spiritual mound within his body was trembling. The surrounding spiritual chi gathered towards him, allowing him to step into the complete battle monarch realm. He had broken through in the midst of battle. Limit breakthrough? Very well, let's see if you can get any stronger. Chu Kuangren was pleasantly surprised. He then dashed out again, and his combat strength was even more terrifying than before. The 48th floor shook violently as he fought. Break! Seizing an opportunity, Chu Kuangren slashed out with the descendant's self-sword, and the violent energy immediately sent the faceless swordsman flying. The majestic sword chi wreaked havoc on the opponent's body, tearing it apart and shattering it into pieces. Phew, did I succeed? Chu Kuangren panted slightly. However, after that, the sword chi that filled the sky gathered in front of him, and the faceless swordsman reappeared. Moreover, the sword chi on his body was even stronger than before. F***ck me. Even Chu Kuangren could not help but curse. This was just too shameless. He could not be killed, and his combat strength would always be stronger than yours. Was the 48th floor really something that could be passed by humans? He even suspected that the owner of the sword gauntlet did not want anyone to pass. If he didn't want anyone to pass, then there's no need for the 48th floor to exist, let alone the 49th floor. There must be a trick in this that I haven't figured out yet, Chu Kuangren murmured. Chapter 183. Outside the Sword Tower. One by one, the prodigies were teleported out. Level 47. Just a little more and I will be able to comprehend the sage technique's Daoist rhythm. Damn it. Ling Huteng gritted his teeth. He looked at the sword tower with a face full of unwillingness. At this moment, there were only 3 people left in the sword tower. They were Chu Kuangren and lunatic swordsman on the 48th floor, and Murong Yu on the 47th floor. At that moment, a white light flashed past the entrance of the sword tower. Murong Yu was also transported out. Just like Ling Huteng, he was also stuck at the 47th floor. Neither of them had successfully passed. Lunatic swordsman and Chu Kuangren. I can't believe those two have reached the 48th floor. Murong Yu could not help but narrow his eyes. Since ancient times, there weren't many sword cultivators who could reach the 48th level. I didn't expect there to be 2 this time. That's right. I wonder which of the 2 is stronger. The prodigies outside the sword gauntlet were all discussing among themselves. But Chu Kuangren has been on the 48th floor for quite some time now, hasn't he? He's been here for more than an hour now. A sword cultivator suddenly said. When the crowd heard this, they could not help but gasp. What? More than an hour? F***ck me. Since the beginning of time, only a handful of sword cultivators have been able to reach the 48th floor, and none of them were able to stay there for more than a quarter of an hour. Yet Chu Kuangren managed to stay there for more than an hour? With this alone, he has already created history. As expected of Chu Kuangren. At this moment, lunatic swordsman Ling Feng was teleported out. His aura was extremely dispirited, as if he had just experienced a great battle. 7 moves. I could only withstand 7 moves from the faceless swordsman. The 48th floor is too terrifying. I reckon that among the elites who came to the sword gauntlet this time, I'm the only one who reached the 48th level. It's a pretty good result. After saying this, Ling Feng looked at the sword tower. Then, his pupils shrank. There's someone else. There's actually someone who reached the 48th level like me. This aura. It's Chu Kuangren. Although he was shocked, Ling Feng thought about it carefully and felt that it was reasonable. After all, it was very likely that the other party was not weaker than him. How long has he been on the 48th floor? Ling Feng casually asked a sword cultivator beside him. It's almost been 2 hours. Hearing this, Ling Feng's face was filled with disbelief. Impossible, how could someone persist on the 48th level for 2 hours? After all, he had only managed to withstand 7 moves, which was less than half an hour. Yet, Chu Kuangren managed to last for almost an hour? How was this possible? Indeed, it has been almost 2 hours. When I came out, he had just reached the 48th floor. I've always remembered it. A sword cultivator said confidently. Ling Feng's Dao heart trembled when he heard that. He could not even hold on for half a quarter of an hour, but Chu Kuangren was able to hold on for close to an hour. The gap between him and Chu Kuangren was huge. Not only Ling Feng, but the others also felt that it was unbelievable. Do you think he can pass the 48th level? A sword cultivator suddenly said. Impossible. Ling Feng said resolutely and decisively, no one can pass through the 48th level. That level is too terrifying. Since the beginning of time, no one has been able to pass it, not even Chu Kuangren. That's right. You're strong, but that faceless swordsman is even stronger. Let me ask you, how are you going to pass this stage? No matter how strong Chu Kuangren is, it's impossible for him to defeat someone stronger than him. Murong Yu's face was also filled with confidence. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the dot of light that belonged to Chu Kuangren suddenly began to move, and under everyone's watchful eyes, he had arrived at the 49th floor. Everyone was dumbfounded. Nangong Huang and the others looked at Ling Feng and Murongyu playfully. Who was the one who said that elder senior brother can't pass this stage? Oh my, this slap in the face came so unexpectedly. Ling Feng and Murongyu's expressions were extremely ugly, but at the same time, they could not believe it as they stared at the sword gauntlet. They had even counted the floors several times. At this time, Chu Kuangren had indeed stopped at the 49th floor. How is this possible? How can anyone pass the 48th floor? That faceless swordsman is always stronger than his opponents. How can he be defeated? How did he do it? Ling Feng and Murongyu were unwilling to believe this fact. The other sword cultivators were even more shocked. The 48th floor had been passed. The 48th floor that no one had been able to pass for countless years had been passed. At this moment, they were witnessing history. Chu Kuangren is extraordinary. The 48th floor that no one had been able to pass for countless years has been passed. How did he do it? Even the few sages were a little shocked. Just a moment ago, Chu Kuangren was on the 48th floor. While he was battling the faceless swordsman, he was also thinking about how to pass this floor. However, no matter how he thought about it, he could not come up with any good ideas. He even planned to use his immortal body to spend a few days and nights on this floor. However, suddenly, the faceless swordsman turned into sword chi and dissipated. The staircase that led to the 49th floor appeared in front of him. A sudden realization came to him. It turned out that the condition to pass the 48th floor was not to defeat the faceless swordsman. The faceless swordsman could not be defeated. To pass this floor, one could only rely on one word: perseverance. Enduring the faceless swordsman for 2 hours was considered a pass, but it was too difficult to endure the pressure created by the faceless swordsman for 2 hours. An opponent that could not be killed and was always stronger than one was enough to make any opponent despair, let alone endure for 2 hours. Even a quarter of an hour would be difficult. However, Chu Kuangren did it. The 48th floor is already so difficult. What kind of test is there on the 49th floor? Chu Kuangren was looking forward to it. He walked towards the 49th floor. However, the result was very disappointing. The test on the 49th floor was aimed at one's Daoist core, but the moment one stepped on the floor, it would create all kinds of illusions to confuse one. To be honest, this floor was also very difficult, even more so than the 48th floor. The illusions were incredibly realistic, more realistic than the illusions created by the mental staircase that Chu Kuangren had encountered before. Even a sage would not be able to pass this floor's test. However, for Chu Kuangren, who had the rocksteady Daoist core, all these illusions were like fleeting clouds that did not affect him at all. He did not stay on this floor for long before he reached the 50th floor, which was the last floor of the sword gauntlet. However, he did not know how much of a shock he had caused to the crowd outside the sword gauntlet when he passed the 49th floor so quickly. Although the crowd did not know what kind of test was on the 49th floor, they knew that the 49th floor was undoubtedly more terrifying if the 48th floor was already so difficult. Most of them did not expect Chu Kuangren to pass this floor. They were even guessing how long it would take for him to be transported out. However, they did not expect him to reach the last floor so quickly, which made everyone dumbfounded. What kind of test is on the 49th floor? How could he pass it so quickly? Is it that easy? Easy my *SS. The sword gauntlet gets harder with each floor, so how could the 49th floor be easy? What's going on? The crowd was puzzled. However, they knew that Chu Kuangren was the only person who had successfully reached the top of the sword gauntlet in countless years. He had made history. Chapter 184. He succeeded in reaching the summit. What kind of fortuitous encounter is within the sword tower? This Chu Kuangren is just too amazing. No one has been able to reach the top of the sword gauntlet for so many years, but he actually succeeded. How did he do it? The sages were shocked. Black Heaven's third forefather, on the other hand, was filled with excitement. As expected of our Black Heaven sect's lead disciple. You can do what others can't. When the other saints saw this, they could not help but feel jealous. They wished that Chu Kuangren was born in their orthodoxy. On the 50th floor of the Sword Tower. When Chu Kuangren arrived at the 50th floor, the scenery in front of him changed. What appeared in front of him was a lake. On the shore of the lake, a man wearing a straw raincoat was fishing. Chu Kuangren slowly walked forward and used his eye of revelation to check his opponent's information. What he saw shocked him to the core. Tranquil Heart Great Emperor, an ancient emperor from 220,000 years ago. His current state is that of an emperor's will body. He's skilled in the sword Dao and cultivates. Due to Chu Kuangren's cultivation level, the eye of revelation could not analyze much information about the emperor before him. But that didn't stop him from being shocked. Including the doppelganger of Demon Emperor Pride, the mindful emperor before him was the second emperor he had seen. Chu Kuangren stood silently behind him without saying a word. One was fishing while the other was standing still. After a while. Little guy, why aren't you talking? The mindful emperor could no longer sit still and asked curiously. Shouldn't he ask who he was first? Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, did not speak a word the moment he arrived. He did not seem to be worried about his current predicament at all. Senior is fishing, I dare not disturb you. Chu Kuangren chuckled. When he heard this, the mindful emperor was taken aback. That's it? Was he just going to stand there and not say a word? What an interesting little fellow. Emperor Mindful laughed. He then took off his raincoat and bamboo hat, revealing his full appearance. Chu Kuangren glanced at it and was slightly surprised. Because the appearance of the mindful emperor was exactly the same as the white-clothed man he saw when the Daoist rhyme on the signboard of the Sword Tower intersected. As expected, the mindful emperor was the owner of the Sword Tower. And the person who had crossed countless years to discuss the Tao with him was not a saint, but a great emperor. Little fellow, do you know who I am? The master of the Sword Tower. That's right, this Sword Tower was indeed left behind by me, and I'm an emperor who attained the Tao during the ancient times. My name is Emperor Ming Xian. Chu Kuangren bowed. Greetings, Emperor. The mindful emperor was stunned. Why was this junior not shocked at all after hearing that he was a great emperor? His Tao heart was too good, wasn't it? However, he did not know that Chu Kuangren had already figured out his identity. The fact that you're able to arrive at the 50th floor of the Sword Tower means that you're already qualified to receive my inheritance. The mindful emperor chuckled. With a wave of his hand, an ancient scripture appeared before Chu Kuangren. The moment the scripture appeared, waves of mysterious Daoist rhymes circulated, and a vast emperor's aura poured out from it. This is Emperor Scripture. Oh, you've got quite an eye, little fellow. Speaking of which, I can sense a different emperor's Daoist rhyme from your body. Have you received another emperor's inheritance before? I dare not hide it from you. I've indeed received an emperor scripture. Chu Kuangren was referring to the eternal emperor scripture. However, he had gotten it from the raffle. Oh, which great emperor wrote it? Can you tell me about it? Chu Kuangren pondered for a while. The eternal emperor. The mindful emperor pondered for a while before a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. The eternal emperor. I can't believe it's him. Do you know him, Emperor? Chu Kuangren was surprised too. He had gotten it from the raffle. Could there really be someone called the Eternal Emperor? I don't know him, but I've seen him in the ancient books. He's a great emperor from the ancient times. I can't believe you've received his inheritance. The ancient era. Even to the mindful heart emperor, it was an extremely ancient era. He had only read about it in the ancient books. I see. Chu Kuangren nodded. Deep down, he was thinking, could it be that the items obtained from the raffle are related to this world? If I have the chance in the future, I'll have to look into this. You've gotten 2 emperor scriptures. Your luck is really impressive. The mindful emperor was amazed. Then, he handed the mindful emperor scripture to Chu Kuangren. Besides this emperor scripture, this sword gauntlet is also a treasure. I'll give it to you as well, the mindful emperor said. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. This sword gauntlet was indeed a treasure. Everything else aside, just the sage techniques recorded in the murals were enough to make any sage orthodoxy go green with envy, not to mention the various uses it had. Thank you, great emperor. By the way, I have a question. The person before me isn't your real body, am I right? Young lad, you've guessed correctly. The one before you now is just a wisp of my emperor's will, the mindful emperor said. Then where is your real body, great emperor? Could it be that you've fallen? F***CKU, I'm still alive and kicking. The mindful emperor rolled his eyes and said angrily. Chu Kuangren scratched his head. I've been rude. I can't tell you where I am, or rather, where the emperors recorded in history are. Once you become an emperor, you'll know everything. As soon as the mindful emperor finished speaking, the wisp of emperors will begin to dissipate. Chu Kuangren bowed at that. Farewell, great emperor. Ha, young lad, you're very talented. I look forward to the day we meet again. I have high hopes for you. The mindful emperor laughed. Chu Kuangren was deep in thought. Today's meeting with the mindful emperor had benefited him greatly. Aside from the emperor scripture and the sword gauntlet, he had also learned a shocking secret. That was, the emperors of old that were recorded in history might not have died, but were still alive somewhere. That level of secret is not something I can reach now. Chu Kuangren shook his head and stopped thinking about it. After the mindful emperor's will dissipated, the lake suddenly trembled. The fishing rod that the mindful emperor left behind swayed gently, and a pitch-black water dragon flew out from the lake. The water dragon was hundreds of meters long, and its body was covered in black scales. A terrifying ferocious chi filled the air. The water dragon rolled in the air and let out a series of roars. Upon closer inspection, one would notice that there was a silver thread wrapped around its mouth. The other end of the silver thread was the fishing rod in front of Chu Kuangren. F***CKMe, the mindful emperor is fishing for a water dragon. Chu Kuangren was dumbfounded. Others were fishing, but the great emperor was fishing for a water dragon? When he thought about it, it did not seem wrong. However, the water dragon was glaring at him fiercely. By the way to control the sword gauntlet is inside the water dragon's body. Young lad, consider this my last test for you. The mindful emperor's voice rang out again. It was the last wisp of emperor's will left in the fishing rod. Great emperor, you've tricked me. Chu Kuangren cried as he looked at the water dragon that was charging towards him. Chapter 185. The black water dragon pounced towards Chu Kuangren, its ferocious chi surging like a tsunami. If it were an ordinary cultivator, they would have been scared out of their wits. However, Chu Kuangren was no ordinary person. His descendant's self-sword slashed across the sky. An incomparably sharp sword chi crazily surged out, slashing at the flood dragon's body. A large number of scales shattered, and blood spurted out like a fountain. Roar, with a miserable howl, the intense pain intensified the black flood dragon's murderous aura. It opened its mouth and spat out a black torrent of spirit force. Chu Kuangren cast the phantom light strike, and his figure disappeared from the spot like a stream of light. When he reappeared, he was already on the right side of the water dragon. He raised his hand and slashed again. Moreover, this sword strike landed precisely on the same spot as before. With a ripping sound, his flesh was torn apart. The black flood dragon was forcibly cut in half and fell back into the lake with a rumble. The waves surged and the flood dragon's blood dyed most of the lake red. On this day, on the 50th floor of the sword gauntlet, Chu Kuangren slayed the evil dragon by the lakeside. Sigh, it's such a shame that no one's here to witness my heroism. Chu Kuangren sighed and sheathed his descendant's self-sword. At that moment, a golden light rushed out from the black flood dragon's corpse and transformed into a fist-sized pearl that was covered with Dao patterns. This is, Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised and reached out to grab the bead in his hand. A wave of enlightenment surged into his mind. This is the core of the sword gauntlet. As long as I can refine it, I'll be able to completely control the sword gauntlet. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. Without delay, he started to refine the core of the sword gauntlet. Outside the sword tower, everyone was staring at the highest level of the sword tower. Once Chu Kuangren reached the final floor, the light that had remained there without moving at all. It did not move at all and there was no movement at all. Did Chu Kuangren obtain the opportunities of fortune within the sword gauntlet? Who knows? I've never been to the 50th floor. I'm so anxious. At this moment, the sword tower suddenly shook. What happened? Everyone's expressions changed slightly and they quickly retreated. The sword tower continued to shrink as it trembled. In the end, it turned into a small black tower that hovered in the sky. A speck of light suddenly emerged from the tower. It was Chu Kuangren. It's a success. Chu Kuangren looked at the small tower and smiled in satisfaction. He could now control the sword gauntlet as he pleased. He waved his hand and put the sword tower into his interspatial ring. The crowd could not help but be shocked. Meanwhile, Murongyu, Ling Huteng, and the other sky prides looked at Chu Kuangren with complicated gazes. The opportunity of fortune of the sword gauntlet was extremely important. At this moment, they could only watch helplessly as this opportunity of fortune fell into Chu Kuangren's hands. How could they be willing? Chu Kuangren, what exactly is the opportunity of fortune inside the sword gauntlet? Ling Huteng couldn't help but ask loudly. Oh, is there a need for me to tell you? Chu Kuangren glanced at him and said indifferently. Chu Kuangren, what kind of trick did you use to pass the 48th floor? Murongyu could not help but ask. Hearing this, everyone was very curious. If I want to pass, I can pass. What tricks do I need? Humph. It's utterly impossible to pass through the 48th level of the sword tower. If you didn't play some tricks, how could you have possibly passed through it? Murongyu's face was full of disbelief. If you can't pass, then what right do you have to doubt that I can't? A frog at the bottom of a well can only see so much, Chu Kuangren said indifferently. As soon as he said that, Murongyu and the others were filled with hatred. Chu Kuangren, I haven't settled the score with you for destroying my clone. Let's end it here and now. Ling Huteng's tone was cold as he took a step forward. The sacred sword in his hand suddenly bloomed with an incomparably bright light. Just as well. A few days ago, Murong Feiyu challenged you to a duel. He wanted to spar with you, but you brutally killed him. As the young emperor of the Murong clan, I must avenge this grudge. Murongyu also unleashed a powerful sword-based Daoist rhyme and locked onto Chu Kuangren, ready to fight him together with Ling Huteng. Shameless. That Murong Feiyu was killed because he tried to sneak up on Lady Lan Yu from behind. He deserved to die. Nangong Huang said coldly. Murongyu snorted coldly, completely ignoring the truth. He only wanted to deal with Chu Kuangren now. As for Murong Feiyu, it was just an excuse, so he could not care less. Despite the two young emperors joining forces to attack Chu Kuangren did not panic at all. Instead, he looked at Tempest Mountain's Ling Feng, who was not far away, and said, "They've already made their move. Can you still hold back?" Upon hearing that, Ling Feng said coldly, "I don't care about teaming up with others to deal with you. If you want to fight, I'll fight you alone. I advise you to join forces with them. That way, you'll be able to unleash a few more moves and won't lose too badly." "You're too arrogant." Ling Feng gritted his teeth. He knew that he was arrogant enough. All these years, he had challenged many strong swordsman cultivators, from the younger generation to the older generation. However, today, he met someone even more arrogant than him. Cut the crap. Attack. Ling Huteng was the first to attack. He lifted the sacred sword in his hand, and an extremely majestic sword chi soared into the sky, turning into a tornado-like sword chi that slashed out. Murongyu had also made his move. He was wielding a sword that looked extremely heavy. With a loud roar, he swung his sword horizontally. The black sword ray was like a crescent moon that streaked across the void and slashed towards Chu Kuangren. Two different sword Dao techniques and two different types of sword-based Daoist rhymes attacked Chu Kuangren at the same time. However, Chu Kuangren did not even bother to dodge. He did not even bother to use his sword. All he did was raise his hand and unleash a palm attack. As his fair, jade-like palm descended, a majestic Daoist rhyme erupted from the center of his palm. Earth chi gathered and turned into an ancient godly mountain. The two sword rays shattered at the same time, and the unparalleled impact spread like a hurricane. Murongyu and Ling Huteng were both forced back. What a terrifying palm strength. Ling Huteng could not help but be shocked. However, at that moment, a ray of light suddenly appeared in front of him. All he saw was a palm enlarging in front of him before it pressed onto his face. Ling Huteng could only feel his body falling backward uncontrollably. Then, his head smashed onto the ground with a loud bang. The intense pain made him feel as if his head was about to explode. To the others, Ling Huteng's head was pressed onto the ground by Chu Kuangren. With a loud bang, the ground caved in, cracks appeared, and blood splattered everywhere. It made Ling Huteng look extremely miserable. I've already said that your clone is weak. How strong can your real body be? Chu Kuangren got up and kicked Ling Huteng, who was like a dead dog, several hundred feet away. Ling Huteng crashed onto a rock wall. Sword rain art. Not far away, Murongyu let out a roar. His Daoist rhyme circulated, and surges of sword chi were unleashed continuously towards Chu Kuangren. Each sword chi had the power to split a mountain, and when these thousands of sword chi converged, it was like a torrent of sword chi. Chu Kuangren still did not dodge. Instead, he took a step forward, and a mysterious Daoist rhyme filled the air as white lotuses formed around him. Countless sword chi landed on the white lotuses, but it did not even cause the slightest ripple. The Daoist rhyme and spiritual power were all easily disintegrated. Just like that, Chu Kuangren withstood the torrent of sword chi and walked step by step towards Murongyu. Under Murongyu's horrified gaze, Chu Kuangren raised his hand and struck out with his palm, sending Murongyu flying. Weak. You're really too weak. So weak that I can't even feel motivated. Chapter 186. Chu Kuangren stood where he was and looked at Ling Huteng and Murongyu, who were lying on the ground with disappointment in his eyes. Weak. Too weak. I can't even muster up the energy to fight you two like this. The other sword cultivators around him gulped in shock when they saw how easily Chu Kuangren suppressed Ling Huteng and Murongyu. Chu Kuangren's combat strength is too terrifying. Yeah, he's inhuman. Ling Huteng, whose head was bleeding, slowly raised his head and stared at the white-robed figure not far away. His eyes were filled with a strong sense of unwillingness. How can he be so strong? D***it. Not far away, Murongyu, who was sent flying, leaped into the air with bloodshot eyes. Rays of light flowed around his body and condensed into an ancient, mysterious rune that exuded a strong Daoist rhyme. Chu Kuangren's interest was piqued when he saw the rune. A sage boundary sword talisman. Interesting. The so-called runes were simplified forms of the power of heaven and earth by observing the ubiquitous Daoist veins between heaven and earth. There were thousands of runes in the world, each with their own mysteries. Sword talismans were runes related to sword Dao and could enhance a sword cultivator's strength. The higher the grade of the sword talisman, the more power it could enhance. In this world, an exalted talisman was extremely rare, let alone a quasi-saint grade sword talisman. With the help of the sage boundary sword talisman, Murong Yu's sword chi was greatly enhanced and an unparalleled Daoist rhyme erupted. Chu Kuangren, take this. Murong Yu's roar was like thunder as he slashed with the sacred sword in his hand. Thousands of sword chi swept out and intertwined to form a terrifying giant python that could devour the heavens and earth. It let out an ear-piercing roar as it charged towards Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren slowly raised his hand against the attack. The 5 supreme foundation levels in his body shone brightly and his spiritual power surged like a tsunami. He did not draw his sword but instead struck out with his palm. The majestic power of the godly mountain erupted in an instant and the giant python that was formed from intertwining sword chi was easily shattered. The impact from the collision between the sword chi and palm energy spread. Murong Yu was the first to be hit, and he was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. Even after using a boundary sage-grade rune, he was still no match for Chu Kuangren. He still did not have the right to make Chu Kuangren draw his sword. The 2 young emperors of swordsmanship had been utterly defeated. Then, Chu Kuangren looked at Tempest Mountain's Ling Feng. This young emperor of the sword Dao, who was known as the lunatic swordsman by others and was extremely obsessed with swords, was frozen on the spot. He stared at Chu Kuangren with trembling eyes. It was too terrifying. Even he would not be able to defeat Murong Yu and Ling Huteng as easily as Chu Kuangren. Moreover, his opponent did not even draw his sword. He did not use his full strength at all. Without a doubt, his opponent was much stronger than him. As I said, if you attack together with them, you can attack a few more times. Now, I think you only have one chance. Attack. Let me see the ultimate sword art of Tempest Mountain. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Ling Feng clenched the sword in his hand tightly. His body trembled slightly, but he did not draw his sword. He was actually afraid. I told you to draw your sword. Chu Kuangren shouted coldly as if he was scolding a child. As he said that, the sword-based Daoist rhyme emanated from his body and surged out like a tsunami, crushing Ling Feng in a frenzy. Under the lock of this sword-based Daoist rhyme, Ling Feng could not even move his finger, let alone draw his sword. No, this is impossible. I'm the Tempest Mountain's pride. How can I not even draw my sword in front of him? At least, I can draw my sword. With that thought in mind, Ling Feng gritted his teeth and slowly pulled out the long sword in his hand. He raised it high and a surge of sword-based Daoist rhyme emanated from it. The sword chi swirled and formed an illusory sword shadow above his head. Under the suppression of Chu Kuangren's Daoist rhyme, Ling Feng's sword shadow trembled continuously as if it would collapse at any moment. Very well, draw your sword. Chu Kuangren said calmly, but his sword-based Daoist rhyme continued to strengthen. Ah! When Ling Feng felt the even more terrifying Daoist rhyme, he let out a frenzied roar. However, the sword shadow above his head did not descend. Everyone was terrified when they saw that. To be able to force lunatic swordsmen to such a state, what kind of terrifying pressure was that? Draw your sword, draw your sword. Ling Feng roared in his heart. However, under the suppression of Chu Kuangren's Daoist rhyme, both his hand and his sword were trembling. It was even harder for the sword's shadow to descend. Sigh, in the end, you still can't break through your limits. The so-called lunatic swordsman is only this much. Chu Kuangren shook his head. The violent sword-based Daoist rhyme erupted once again. Under the impact of this Daoist rhyme, the illusory sword's shadow was completely shattered. Finally, Ling Feng could not hold on any longer and collapsed onto the ground. In the end, he could not even draw his sword. I've lost. Lunatic swordsman slumped onto the ground with a dejected look on his face. He felt a huge sense of defeat. When the surrounding sword cultivators saw that, they felt that the scene before them was too unbelievable. The mighty lunatic swordsman was suppressed to the point where he could not even draw his sword. Isn't this a little too frightening? Lunatic swordsman's strength is definitely stronger than Murong Yu and Ling Huteng, yet he's being suppressed to the point where he can't even draw his sword. It seems that Chu Kuangren did not use his full strength when he fought against Murong Yu and Ling Huteng. I even suspect that he did not use half of his strength. Oh my god, this Chu Kuangren is just too abnormal. He's a monster. I don't believe it, I don't believe it. Ling Huteng propped himself up and roared in a frenzy. He channeled his spiritual power and wanted to fight again. However, at that moment, a vast domineering aura descended from the sky. Apart from Chu Kuangren, all the sword cultivators at the scene were suppressed. Those with weaker cultivations were immediately sprawled on the ground, unable to move. That was the sage aura. In the sky, 4 figures appeared. They were the sages of the one mountain, one sect, and 2 families. However, 3 of them did not look at Chu Kuangren in a friendly manner. After all, their sky prides had been dealt a terrible blow by Chu Kuangren. Their Daoist core might even be affected when they returned. What's wrong? Are you guys planning to attack a junior? At that moment, Black Heaven's third forefather said. The other 3 sages retracted their gazes. They knew that this was a battle between sky prides. If they were to attack, the nature of the battle would change completely, and it might even trigger a war between orthodoxies. However, watching Chu Kuangren grow stronger and stronger before their eyes, especially when he was a member of the Black Heaven sect, made them feel bad. Let's stop. The Tempest Mountain sage said. He then looked at Chu Kuangren and asked, Young friend, may I ask what kind of opportunities of fortune are inside the sword gauntlet? Not only him, but the other sages were also very curious. The opportunities of fortune inside the sword gauntlet had been hidden for so long that no one knew about it for countless years. Now that someone had finally obtained this opportunities of fortune, the sages were still itching to get their hands on it. Kuangren, you don't have to say it. As long as I'm here, no one can force you. At that moment, Black Heaven's third forefather said to Chu Kuangren. Yes, third forefather. Chu Kuangren nodded. Brother third Daoist, don't you think that's a little unkind of you? We're just asking, it's not like we're trying to steal it. Is there a need to hide it from us? Third forefather Linghu frowned and said. It's up to us whether to tell you or not. So what? Are you going to force us if we don't tell you? Black Heaven's third forefather said indifferently. You, third forefather Linghu gritted his teeth in anger, but there was nothing he could do. Chapter 187. The opportunity of fortune of the sword gauntlet was taken by Chu Kuangren, but the rest of the sword cultivators were devastated. Some of them even lost interest in practicing their swordsmanship. It was too tragic. Compared to Chu Kuangren, what was the point of practicing their swordsmanship? Other than a few people who stayed in the hidden sword canyon to observe the sword scars, most of the sword cultivators, including the one mountain and 2 clans, had left. Boss Qian, we'll meet again. Brother Chu, have a safe journey. Qian Fugui laughed. He had been in contact with Chu Kuangren for the past few days. Although they were not exactly friends, they were at least on good terms. Looking at Chu Kuangren's departing figure, Qian Fugui smiled. This trip to the hidden sword canyon was really worth it. A green figure appeared behind Qian Fugui. Boss, you've been in contact with Chu Kuangren for the past few days. Are you trying to befriend him? Duh. Then why didn't you just reveal your identity? Why don't you understand? It's important to be honest when making friends. The green figure rolled his eyes. Boss, why are you befriending him? You know very well that you're just interested in his identity and potential, right? You still have the nerve to talk about being honest? That's too fake. Shut up. I'm your boss, how dare you talk back to me? Yes. Boss is right. The green figure had no choice but to follow Qian Fugui's lead. Qian Fugui looked at Chu Kuangren's departing figure and rubbed the white jade ring on his thumb. There are too many investment opportunities in this era of great battles, and Chu Kuangren is definitely worth investing in. It won't go wrong to build a good relationship with him. What, an emperor's scripture? On the ferry boat, Black Heaven's third forefather could not help but exclaim when he heard that the opportunity of fortune in the sword gauntlet was an emperor's inheritance. An emperor's scripture was too valuable. Even a sage would be jealous of it. Luckily you didn't say it out loud. Otherwise, who knows if those 3 old men would start a war just to get it. An emperor's scripture is too scary. Black Heaven's third forefather said in relief. Quangren, you have a lot of luck, but the emperor's scripture is too important. You mustn't tell anyone else. Otherwise, even the Black Heaven sect will not be able to protect you. Black Heaven's third forefather said solemnly. Chu Quangren's heart skipped a beat. After all, he had the backing of 3 sage orthodoxies. If even they could not protect Chu Quangren, he would not be able to do so. In that case, what kind of power would they be facing? Quangren, this world is not as simple as it seems on the surface. Sage orthodoxies are not necessarily the strongest forces. There are many unknowns and unknowns in this world. Black Heaven's third forefather said meaningfully. Unknown things, unknown lands. Chu Quangren murmured before he nodded. I understand. Study the imperial scripture well and strive to become an emperor in the future. Only then will you not be afraid of anyone or anything. Yes, third patriarch. Soon, everyone returned to the Black Heaven sect. When Honorable Xianxia found out that Chu Quangren had obtained the opportunity of fortune from the sword gauntlet, he was extremely pleased. I knew you could do it, Quangren. Other than Quangren, no one else can take the sword tower's fortuitous encounter. Elder Rian said with a smile. That's right, what is that opportunity? One of the elders asked curiously. At that moment, Black Heaven's third forefather's voice came from the void. No one is allowed to ask about the opportunity of fortune in the sword gauntlet. Everyone looked at each other, and then revealed a look of contemplation. Chu Quangren smiled apologetically at the crowd. Lead disciple, don't overthink it. Since the sage has spoken, we will obey. We will not ask about the opportunity of fortune anymore. Not bad. The opportunity of fortune is precious. It would be bad if it attracted the attention of others. The fewer people who know about it, the better. The few elders expressed their understanding. All right, Quangren, the trip to the sword gauntlet has been tough. Go back and rest. You still have to attend the inauguration ceremony in half a month. Yes, what? Just as Chu Quangren was about to leave, he suddenly regained his senses and asked, what inauguration ceremony? Of course it's the inauguration ceremony where you take over the position of sect leader. Chu Quangren only remembered when he heard that. Honorable teacher, are you really not going to reconsider? Look at all the elders here, which one of them isn't more suitable than me? Can't you just pick one of them? Hey, lead disciple, you can't just say things like that. Besides you, who else is qualified to take over the position of sect leader? Yes, it has to be you. Quangren, just accept it. The few elders laughed. Surprisingly, none of them objected. Chu Quangren wanted to cry but no tears came out. Do you guys think so highly of me? Quangren, look, all the elders have unanimously agreed that the position of sect leader belongs to you. You have to accept it. I'm already a boundary sage now, so I need to hide behind the scenes and accumulate the resources to become a sage. Honorable Xianxia patted Chu Quangren on the shoulder. You don't have to worry about it affecting your cultivation. There are a few elders who will help you with the management. You just need to make some decisions on the bigger issues. Other times, you can just be a sect leader who doesn't have to do anything. Back in the day, that's how I went through it. As Honorable Xianxia spoke of his experience, the mouths of the few elders beside him twitched. They wanted to slap him in the face. Damn it, you're so comfortable being a sect leader who doesn't have to do anything. We were all exhausted to the point of exhaustion. All right, honorable teacher, I understand. Chu Quangren saw that the faces of the few elders, including the beautiful elder Rian, had turned as black as the bottom of a pot. He quickly interrupted Honorable Xianxia, who was still bragging. If he was one step late, he was afraid that this honorable teacher of his would be beaten to death. It's good that you've thought it through. Being a sect leader is actually quite easy. Honorable Xianxia smiled in satisfaction and continued to tease the nerves of the few elders. Kuangren, you should go back first. We need to discuss some matters regarding the inauguration ceremony with your honorable teacher. Elder Rian smiled gently. Yes. Chu Kuangren felt his scalp tingle. He gave Honorable Xianxia a look of good luck before bowing and retreating. When he left, Chu Kuangren considerately closed the palace door. Then, he heard some screams coming from inside. Didn't we already agree on the inauguration ceremony? Why? Ah, fourth elder, what's wrong with you? Why did you hit me? F***ck me, what are you guys doing? You're a sect leader who doesn't have to do anything, right? You're speaking from experience, right? You bastard Xianxia, do you know how much white hair I've gotten from overseeing the Internal Affairs Division all these years? You're quite happy, aren't you? Hit him. Hey, stop. Elder Rian, I was wrong, don't pinch me. Hiss, Kuangren, save me. Outside the palace door, Chu Kuangren shuddered and bowed towards the palace door. Honorable teacher, please forgive me for being unfilial. I can't help you anymore. He sighed and quickly turned around to leave. Back at the Daoist palace. Lan Yu and Lil Bing were looking at a piece of clothing. Hey, what are you guys looking at? Master, you're back. These are the clothes that the Internal Affairs Division just sent over. They're for you to wear during the inauguration ceremony. Lil Bing walked forward with the clothes in her arms. Chu Kuangren glanced at them. Wow, the materials used for the clothes were all high-end goods. These clothes alone were worth at least 1,000,000 soul stones. Chapter 188. There was still half a month before the inauguration ceremony. As a Sage Orthodoxy's inauguration ceremony, it would not be too shabby. According to tradition, Honorable Xianxia had sent out many invitations to the various Sage Orthodoxies to attend the ceremony. The news that Chu Kuangren was about to take over the Black Heaven sect leader position had spread throughout the firmament star. Everyone from the major forces was shocked. What kind of joke was this? How old was Chu Kuangren now? How could he take over the Black Heaven sect? That was insane. Was he strong enough? Was he prestigious enough? Was he experienced enough? However, when they thought about it, they realized that Chu Kuangren's strength was enough to kill an honorable supreme. His prestige was so high that his name was known throughout the world. As for experience, there were plenty of people in the Black Heaven sect who were experienced. F***ck. Everyone realized that Chu Kuangren was indeed qualified to lead the Black Heaven sect. All of a sudden, everyone from the Sage Orthodoxies was dumbfounded. This was especially true for the Sky Prides, who had mixed feelings. While they were still fighting, Chu Kuangren was about to become the sect leader of a Sage Orthodoxy. His status was much higher than theirs. How old is he? I think he's not even 20. F***ck me, a 20-year-old Sage Orthodoxy sect leader? I don't think there are many like that in the past and present. I have a feeling that under Chu Kuangren's leadership, the Black Heaven sect is about to enter a new era. Honorable Xianxia and the others are really daring to hand over an entire orthodoxy to a young man who's not even 20 years old. How bold. This Chu Kuangren is really something. The outside world was in an uproar because of the news that Chu Kuangren was about to take over the Black Heaven sect leader position. However, Chu Kuangren did not care about any of that at all. He was currently studying the Emperor Scripture. The Mindful Emperor Scripture that he obtained from the Sword Gauntlet. This was the second Emperor Scripture that he had studied. With the experience of studying the Longevity Emperor Scripture, he was more familiar with it. He did not have to worry about accidentally getting lost in it and going into closed-door meditation for a few years. He realized that compared to the Longevity Emperor Scripture, the the mindful emperor scripture was slightly less profound. Emperors were divided into strong and weak ones, and naturally, emperor scriptures were also divided into different grades. Although it was not as good as the eternal emperor scripture, the mindful emperor scripture was still an emperor scripture, and it would be of great help to Chu Kuangren. As the two emperor scriptures verified each other, Chu Kuangren's Dao technique realm improved a little, and the results were gratifying. What surprised Chu Kuangren even more was that there was an emperor technique recorded in the mindful emperor scripture that would be of great help to his current sword Dao. Sword Qi transformation. This technique can condense the sword Qi into doppelgangers to attack. When mastered, the sword Qi can be split into millions. One person can be an army. Chu Kuangren looked at the emperor technique recorded in the mindful emperor scripture. He yearned for this emperor technique so much that he could not wait to master it. In fact, there was also an emperor technique in the eternal emperor scripture. However, that emperor technique was a recovery-type emperor technique. It was not very useful to Chu Kuangren, who had an immortal body, so he did not delve too deeply into it. However, the sword Qi transformation technique was different. To Chu Kuangren, who was an expert in sword Dao, it would be a great help. Through this emperor technique, Chu Kuangren could even improve his heaven-slaying sword drawing technique further. Chu Kuangren began to comprehend the sword Qi transformation technique. Time flew, and 10 days passed. There were still 3 days before the inauguration ceremony. Today was the day. Chu Kuangren suddenly felt a vibration in his yin and yang ring. He came out of his emperor technique enlightenment state and probed it with his senses. It's this little guy. Chu Kuangren was a little surprised. The vibration in his yin and yang ring came from the godly phoenix egg. The godly phoenix egg had absorbed countless treasures during this period of time. Some of them were from others, and some were from the gacha roulette. Today, it was finally going to hatch. Why did you have to do it now? You sure know how to pick the right time. Chu Kuangren shook his head helplessly. However, the egg's head was already out. He could not possibly stuff it back in, could he? There are still 3 days left. I should be able to make it in time. Chu Kuangren said. Then, he stood up and turned into a ray of light. Where are you going, master? I don't know. Lil Bing and Lan Yu looked at each other, puzzled. Chu Kuangren did not bring anyone with him. He turned into a ray of light and flew into the distance. He wanted to find a suitable place for the godly phoenix egg to hatch. Soon, Chu Kuangren arrived at the mouth of a volcano. There was a large amount of lava in the mouth of the volcano, and an extremely rich fire-based Daoist rhyme permeated the air. He took out the godly phoenix egg and hesitated. Will it burn the egg if I just throw it in? The godly phoenix egg vibrated gently, revealing an extremely joyful emotion. It seemed to be very satisfied with the place. If that's the case, I'll do it here. Chu Kuangren no longer hesitated and immediately threw the godly phoenix egg into the mouth of the volcano. All he needed to do now was to wait. Another 2 days passed. Chu Kuangren noticed that the fire-based Daoist rhyme in the volcano was getting thinner as if it had been absorbed by the godly phoenix egg. This little guy's appetite is too big. Chu Kuangren murmured. Apart from that, he also sensed an extremely mysterious and vigorous Daoist rhyme that was gradually spreading out in the air. It was the godly phoenix's Daoist rhyme. The Daoist rhyme was so strong that it even attracted many beasts nearby, hoping to devour the godly phoenix and evolve. Hiss, a giant python crawled over from afar. Its lantern-sized eyes stared intently at the mouth of the volcano. Its instincts told it that there was a great opportunity of fortune inside. As long as it could obtain it, it would transform into a dragon today. At that thought, the giant python was so excited that its scales were trembling. However, when it arrived at the mouth of the volcano, it saw a person. A white-robed young man was sitting cross-legged at the mouth of the volcano. The flying volcanic ash around him did not touch the young man at all. Danger. The giant python felt a sense of danger from this young man. It was not just the giant python. Some other beasts were also heading towards the mouth of the volcano. Those who dared to covet the godly phoenix were all extremely powerful beings. Not only did they have a noble bloodline, but the weakest among them had a cultivation base of at least the honorable realm. Now, these beasts had gathered together and were all staring at the mouth of the volcano, their eyes filled with desire. However, with Chu Kuangren around, they dared not act rashly. If this goes on, the being in the mouth of the volcano will come out soon. When that happens, we won't have a chance anymore. A giant ape with red fur all over its body said in a deep voice. I don't care anymore. I can't hold it in anymore. That volcano definitely has the aura of some kind of ancient remnant. If I devour it, my bloodline will definitely evolve. The giant python could not hold it in anymore. With a look of desire in its eyes, the giant python crawled towards the mouth of the volcano. I can't take it anymore. I want to go too. There's only one human. There's nothing to be afraid of. How can we miss such a great opportunity of fortune? One by one, the beasts began to move. Even though they knew that Chu Kuangren was not as simple as he seemed, they still could not hold back the Daoist rhyme from the godly phoenix's egg. It was a desire for a higher level of life. They wanted to evolve. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren, who had been sitting at the mouth of the volcano, noticed the movements of the beasts and slowly stood up as well. A terrifying Daoist rhyme erupted from that seemingly frail body of his. It was as if the entire world was about to collapse and shatter. Chapter 189. If all of you had stayed put, I wouldn't have bothered with you. But if you want to touch my offspring now, you're asking for it. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Next to him, the descendant's self-sword that had been stuck in the ground all this while trembled slightly before a sword ray shot out and slashed at one of the beasts. Without any suspense, the demonic beast was unable to resist this sword light and was directly torn in half. Go. Don't be afraid, he's alone. Once we devour that ancient remnant beast, we'll be able to evolve. Now, we just need to get rid of this obstacle. Kill. None of the beasts were willing to give up on the godly phoenix egg. The giant python was the first to rush out. It opened its mouth wide, and its throat began to emit a blazing light before it spat out a stream of boiling lava. Chu Kuangren raised his hand and unleashed a palm attack. With a loud boom, an unparalleled majestic Daoist rhyme turned into a godly mountain and crushed it. The boiling lava was dispersed, and the power of the godly mountain directly smashed onto the giant python's head, almost smashing half of its head into pieces. Go to hell. The giant ape leaped high into the air, clenched its fist, and smashed towards Chu Kuangren like a meteor. Ignorant. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. With a casual slap, the horrifying giant ape was sent flying thousands of meters away and crashed into a forest. However, despite his unparalleled combat strength, the beasts had long been mesmerized by the godly phoenix egg's aura. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they fearlessly charged towards Chu Kuangren. Just in time, let's try this sword chi transformation technique. Chu Kuangren murmured. A powerful surge of Daoist rhyme erupted from his body, and a large amount of sword chi seeped out of his body before intertwining in the air to form a human figure. This person looked exactly like Chu Kuangren. All the beasts were dumbfounded. What kind of technique was this? However, what happened next shocked them even more. The sword chi on Chu Kuangren's body flowed and turned into 2, then 4. Including the real Chu Kuangren, there were a total of 5. Each of them had a terrifying sword-based Daoist rhyme, so the beasts could not tell which one was the real Chu Kuangren. Destroy these beasts. Chu Kuangren's real body said. 4 sword chi clones rushed out from 4 different directions, holding swords condensed from sword chi in their hands. Wherever they went, sword chi danced, tearing apart demonic beasts one after another, turning them into souls of the dead. Chu Kuangren walked to the side of a large rock, patted the dust off it, and sat down. Then, he rested his chin on his hand as he watched the massacre unfold before him. The strength of the sword chi clone is determined by the strength of the sword chi. With my current mastery of the sword chi transformation technique, I can create a clone with 80% of my strength. And the more there are, the more scattered the sword chi will be, and the weaker the power of the clones will be. For sword chi clones, each with half of my strength, should be enough to deal with these demonic beasts. Chu Kuangren nodded in satisfaction at his clone's performance. The mindful emperor's sword chi transformation technique was extremely terrifying. If Chu Kuangren could master it to its peak, he could even create a sword chi clone with the same power level as him. Apart from that, the sword chi doppelganger could also take on various forms. For example, it could transform into a demonic beast or any other person. Otherwise, it would not be called the sword chi transformation technique. The faceless swordsmen and the sword chi beasts that Chu Kuangren encountered in the sword gauntlet were also created with reference to the sword chi transformation technique. Roar. With a roar, a demonic beast covered in pitch-black scales that looked like a ferocious tiger pounced on one of the sword chi clones. The sword chi clone unleashed a slash, and the piercing sword chi blasted the beast away. However, it was unable to kill the ferocious tiger beast. The scales on my body are extremely tough. Your sword chi can't hurt me at all, the ferocious tiger beast roared at the sword chi clone. However, the clone did not have any emotions, and there was no change in its expression. Not far away, Chu Kuangren saw this scene and rubbed his chin as if he was thinking about something. Then, he took out the sacred emerald sword case. He tapped on the sword case, and it slowly opened. A pitch-black longsword suddenly flew out, piercing through the demonic beast horde and arriving in front of the sword chi clone. It was the Troopbreaker ominous sword. The sword chi clone grabbed the Troopbreaker ominous sword and infused it with sword chi. An extremely ferocious aura emanated from it, and its combat strength increased. What? The ferocious tiger beast's eyes widened. Not only can it create clones, but it can also use weapons. Moreover, one could tell that the weapon was extremely powerful. This is clearly a shameless act. However, the sword chi clone did not think too much about it. After obtaining the Troopbreaker ominous sword, it attacked again. This time, with the Troopbreaker ominous sword in hand, the ferocious tiger beast's scales were no longer a hindrance, and it was easily torn apart. In just a few moves, the ferocious tiger beast was easily slain. Not far away, Chu Kuangren tapped on the sword case a few more times, and another 3 treasured swords flew out, which were then caught by the other 3 sword chi clones. Every treasured sword in the sword case was a weapon that countless sword cultivators dreamed of owning. Now that they were wielded by the sword chi clones, the terrifying sword chi was unleashed to the fullest, and the efficiency of killing the beasts was even higher. This sacred emerald sword case and the sword chi clones are a perfect match. Chu Kuangren thought to himself. If he had enough treasured swords in the future, he could create hundreds of sword chi clones, each wielding a sacred sword or a supreme sword. How spectacular would that scene be? This was no joke. If Chu Kuangren wanted swords, he did not need to go to Sword Prayer City to find someone to forge them. There was a huge pile of swords on the Black Heaven Sect's Sword Mountain. The 4 sword chi clones and the 4 treasured swords were like 4 unstoppable killing gods, and the beasts were harvested like weeds. Not long after, the ground was filled with the corpses of countless beasts. The air was filled with the pungent smell of blood, and violent energy turbulence was everywhere. The scene was a mess. Seeing this, Chu Kuangren raised his hand and activated the gluttonous devouring technique, absorbing all the beasts into the avarice dimension and refining them into pure spiritual power. The flesh and blood essence of these beasts were comparable to a few honorable supremes, and it was enough to increase Chu Kuangren's cultivation level. At that moment, the entire volcano suddenly shook. A terrifying Daoist rhyme emanated from within the volcano, and the surviving beasts seemed to have felt something as their eyes became filled with fear. An ancient aura that came from their bloodline made them involuntarily kneel on the ground, and their bodies trembled. Ugh! A piercing cry came from within the volcano, piercing through the clouds. Then, a blood-red godly phoenix rushed out of the volcano along with waves of rays of light and soared into the sky. Waves of Daoist rhyme filled the air, shaking the heavens and earth. The head of a chicken, the jaw of a swallow, the neck of a snake, the back of a turtle, the tail of a fish, it was the image of the legendary phoenix. As the godly phoenix soared in the sky, all the flying beasts in the firmament star sensed it and unconsciously let out a long cry in the direction of the godly phoenix, as if they were congratulating the birth of the divine beast. At that moment, all birds were paying homage to the godly phoenix. At that moment, the heavens and earth were celebrating. Chu Kuangren looked at the godly phoenix and could not help but sigh. This little guy has finally hatched. Besides, TSK, as expected of a divine beast, this display is different. Chapter 190. When the godly phoenix appeared, all living beings in the world could sense it. In an instant, the entire firmament star was shaken. After all, it was a divine beast. One had to know that divine beasts like dragons and divine phoenixes only existed in legends. Every single one of them was incomparably precious. Even in ancient times, they were extremely rare. As long as a divine beast did not die, it would at least become an emperor in the future. If one could tame it, it would be a great help to a cultivator. At that moment, many great ones were searching for divine beasts, especially those who were good at divination techniques. They wanted to deduce the godly phoenix's location. On a certain mountain peak. The divine predictor, who was dressed in plain clothes, was deducing the godly phoenix's location. His Daoist rhymes circulated, and a mysterious power of divination appeared. In his hand was a bronze mirror. The mirror was shrouded in clouds and mist, and it contained a powerful power of divination. After a long time, the clouds in the mirror still did not dissipate. The divine predictor shook his head. Divine beasts are blessed by the heavens and earth, and their fate is even more noble than the emperors of old. It's difficult to deduce. If even he was like that, it was needless to say for the others. All the great ones who wanted to deduce the godly phoenix's location had failed. On top of the volcano, the immortal godly phoenix appeared and soared in the sky. Her gorgeous and beautiful figure exuded waves of extraordinary Daoist rhymes. Finally, the godly phoenix landed in front of Chu Kuangren and rubbed her furry head against him, expressing her joy and intimacy. Chu Kuangren patted her head and activated his eye of revelation to check the godly phoenix's information before him. The immortal godly phoenix is the ruler of the phoenix tribe. It has an honorable cultivation level and possesses the divine abilities, the essence of myriad flames, and the nirvana flames. According to the information provided by the eye of revelation, Chu Kuangren could not help but sigh. As expected of a godly phoenix, its cultivation level was already an honorable the moment it was born. This child that I hatched has a higher cultivation level than me? At that thought, Chu Kuangren sweated. It really is the godly phoenix. At that moment, a surprised voice came from the distant sky. An old man in Daoist robes came flying from afar. This old man had a horse-like face and deep eye sockets, giving off an eerie vibe. The old man was overjoyed when he saw the divine phoenix. I never thought that I would encounter such a great opportunity on this trip. If I can subdue this divine phoenix, I will be able to do as I please in the firmament dome. This old man had been nearby and immediately rushed over when he sensed the birth of the divine phoenix. He could tell that this godly phoenix had just been born and its cultivation was only at the honorable realm. It was a far cry from a quasi-sage like him. The chances of him subduing this divine phoenix were very high. However, he soon noticed Chu Kuangren beside him. He could not help but be surprised when he saw Chu Kuangren's otherworldly appearance and temperament. When he saw how close the divine phoenix was to him, his heart skipped a beat. Could the divine phoenix have already been subdued? Thinking of this, his eyes burst out a wisp of killing intent. The divine phoenix had to be his. Young friend, may I know which orthodoxy you're from? The old man in Daoist robes slowly approached Chu Kuangren with a smile on his face. However, his appearance was not flattering at all. Even when he was smiling, he gave off a gloomy feeling. Chu Kuangren activated his eye of revelation and looked at the old man in front of him. Master Daoist Withered Cloud, one of the protectors of the sacred palace of death. His cultivation level is at the boundary sage realm, and he cultivates the sage techniques, Withered Shadow Seal, Great Earth Mountain Scorched Palm, a protector of the sacred palace of death. This sacred palace of death again. Chu Kuangren was a little surprised. The black light sage that he had killed in the luminous moon sage's secret realm was also a protector of this sacred palace. What kind of force is this? Chu Kuangren had only met two people. One was a sage, and the other was a boundary sage. This kind of background is just too terrifying. Even a sage orthodoxy would not be able to match up to them. That orthodoxy is not important. What's important is that you don't come near me anymore, Master Daoist. Looking at your face makes me a little nervous. Don't be afraid, young friend. I may look scary, but I'm definitely a good person. Master Daoist Withered Cloud smiled. At the same time, a gray chi was condensing on his hand that was facing away from Chu Kuangren. A fierce look flashed across his eyes, and he suddenly attacked. However, someone was faster than him. Behind him, 4 sword rays were flying towards him from 4 different directions. What? Master Daoist Withered Cloud was a little surprised. His palm attack that was originally aimed at Chu Kuangren was now aimed at the incoming sword rays. When the sword rays collided with the palm energy, a terrifying force swept out, and the 4 sword chi clones could not help but be pushed back a few hundred meters. Chu Kuangren seized the opportunity to raise his sword and unleash a slash. A majestic sword-based Daoist rhyme locked onto Master Daoist Withered Cloud, and the sword slashed onto his back. A terrifying sword chi erupted, and even a boundary sage's body was almost torn in half by that attack. Ah! With a scream, Master Daoist Withered Cloud was sent flying. When the godly phoenix saw that, she did not need Chu Kuangren's order. Instead, she opened her mouth and spat out a ball of golden flames at Master Daoist Withered Cloud. The flames were so hot that even light was distorted wherever they passed. D****. Master Daoist Withered Cloud was a boundary sage after all. With a loud roar, a grey chi of death erupted and collided with the flames. He landed on the ground. His entire body was almost cut in half by Chu Kuangren's sword attack, and wisps of grey chi escaped from his body. Master Daoist Withered Cloud took out a life-saving pill that he had kept for many years and swallowed it, which temporarily stopped his injuries from worsening. Kid, I'm going to skin you alive. Master Daoist Withered Cloud roared. He no longer pretended to be courteous. At the same time, he was also very shocked. After all, he had transcended the heavenly tribulation and ascended to a boundary sage. Coupled with the nourishment of the death chi, his body had long transformed. Even if he stood still, an ordinary honorable's attack would not be able to hurt him. Yet, he was severely injured by Chu Kuangren's sword attack. If he did not have the life-saving pill, he might even die. Where did this terrifying skypride come from? If you want to skin me alive, why don't you try? A hint of disgust flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes when he saw the chi of death that was seeping out from his opponent's body. He did not like that aura at all. The 4 sword chi clones charged towards Master Daoist Withered Cloud. When they channeled their sword chi, it was as if 4 honorables were joining forces. Master Daoist Withered Cloud was shocked. These are clones? Why are there so many of them? What kind of technique is this? Cloning techniques were extremely rare, let alone so many at once. Master Daoist Withered Cloud had never heard of it before. Get out of my way. Master Daoist Withered Cloud was a boundary sage after all. Even if he was severely injured by Chu Kuangren's sword attack, his combat strength was still extremely terrifying. He unleashed a palm attack, and the chi of death surged out like a tidal wave. The 4 sword chi clones instantly crumbled under such power. The 4 longswords fell to the ground with a clang. B****, die. Master Daoist Withered Cloud channeled the chi of death in his body and unleashed a palm attack. A black flame burned and emanated an eerie and domineering Daoist rhyme. Chu Kuangren then slapped the sword case in front of him, and 8 longswords flew out from it. They carried a mysterious Daoist rhyme and majestic sword chi that forced Master Daoist rhyme to retreat. The 4 longswords that fell to the ground also rose into the air and resonated with the other longswords, forming a shocking sword formation. Today, I'll use a boundary sage like you to test out the power of the 4 seasons sword formation, Chu Kuangren said indifferently while holding the sword case in one hand. Chapter 191. The 12 swords hovered in the air, forming a shocking sword formation. Waves of mysterious Daoist rhymes descended from the sky, enveloping an area of a few miles and trapping Daoist Withered Cloud. The second stage of the 4 seasons sword formation, the 12 moons sword formation. This is a sword formation. Brat, I didn't expect you to have so many tricks up your sleeves. But, you're just a combat king warrior. Even if you have a sword formation, what can you possibly do to me? Break. Daoist Withered Cloud growled. Then, he raised his hand and a gloomy and overbearing Daoist rhyme erupted. Black flames surged in all directions. However, the Daoist rhymes of the sword array circulated, and a piercingly cold sword chi whizzed out like a cold wind in the cold winter. Under this sword chi, the black flames were continuously disintegrating. Playing with fire, huh? Chu Kuangren chuckled. The Daoist rhyme in the sword formation changed, and a huge sun suddenly rose up. As the light shone, rays of sword chi intertwined to form a sea of fire that surged out, burning old man Ku Yun's face. What sword array is this? It's actually so powerful. Old man Ku Yun was frightened. He had seen his fair share of formations, but he had never seen a sword formation controlled by a battle king warrior force him to such a degree. Just like the doppelganger technique, this sword formation shocked him. All of these abilities were beyond his comprehension. How could a combat king possess such abilities? Who exactly are you? Elder Ku Yun stared at Chu Kuangren outside the sword formation and questioned him loudly. His eyes were filled with hatred and confusion. Take a guess. Chu Kuangren chuckled. With a thought, Daoist rhymes circulated in the sword array. Countless sword chi interweaved to form the scene of the 4 seasons, which kept blasting at old man Ku Yun. Sometimes, it was like the spring rain, soundless and impossible to guard against. Sometimes, it was like the explosion of spring thunder, peerlessly tyrannical. Sometimes, it was like the scorching heat, raging flames burning the sky. Sometimes, it was like the bleak autumn wind, and the sword chi contained a sense of melancholy. Sometimes, it was as cold and ruthless as the cold wind. The 4 seasons changed, and the scenery of nature was contained within this season. Even though Daoist Withered Cloud was a quasi-saint, he was still in a sorry state under the continuous attacks of the sword array and his injuries were worsening. I will die. I will die at the hands of a battle king? Daoist Withered Cloud was terrified at the thought of this. He stared at Chu Kuangren, not expecting a young battle monarch to possess the combat strength to kill a boundary sage. This was simply inconceivable. Who is this person? Master Daoist Withered Cloud stared at the peerless white-robed Chu Kuangren. Suddenly, a thought flashed across his mind. You're Chu Kuangren. Oh, you guessed it. You're not too stupid. Chu Kuangren chuckled. I should have guessed it a long time ago. With such combat strength, proficiency in swordsmanship, extraordinary looks, and that sword you have on you that looks like white jade and has an extraordinary aura, you must be Chu Kuangren. Daoist Withered Cloud gnashed his teeth and said. Now that you've figured it out, you may die in peace, Chu Kuangren said calmly. With a single thought, the sword formation's transformations reached its peak. A surge of sword-based Daoist rhymes circulated and formed a colorful sword shadow within the sword formation. It contained the power of the 4 seasons and nature itself, and it slashed down on Master Daoist Withered Cloud. Under this attack, Master Daoist Withered Cloud, who was already riddled with injuries, could not resist at all. All he could do was let out a cry of agony before his entire body was torn apart by the sword chi and shattered into pieces. Even a boundary sage's body could not withstand such an unparalleled power. Return. Chu Kuangren patted the sword case, and the 12 treasured swords returned to him. The power of the 4 seasons sword formation was stronger than he had imagined, and this was only the second stage. There were still the 24 solar terms and 365 days. How powerful would it be once it was completed? He walked to Master Daoist Withered Cloud's corpse and picked up the yin and yang ring on the ground. After sensing it for a while, he tossed it into the yin and yang ring. What kind of force is the sacred palace of death? Why have I never heard of it in the Azure Dragon domain? Chu Kuangren murmured. Then, he remembered what Black Heaven's third forefather had told him a few days ago. Unknown things, unknown lands. Could this sacred palace of death be one of those unknown lands? Since it was an unknown land, ordinary cultivators would not know about it, so it was only natural that he had not heard of it before. Chu Kuangren raised his hand and used the gluttonous devouring technique to refine the corpse. He would not let go of the corpse even if it was dead. Even turning one's bones into ashes would not be as ruthless as him. The immortal godly phoenix came to Chu Kuangren's side and suddenly said, "Mother, mother, you're so powerful." That's... What did you call me? The immortal godly phoenix tilted her head. Mother. Her voice was like a 7 or 8-year-old girl's. It sounded crisp and sweet, but Chu Kuangren was speechless. Don't call me mother. Mother, do you not want me anymore? The immortal godly phoenix sounded like she was about to cry. In her inherited memories, the one who hatched her was her mother. Since Chu Kuangren hatched her, who else could it be but her mother? It's not that I don't want you anymore, but you can't call me mother. Call me brother. Yes, just call me brother, Chu Kuangren said. Brother? Yes. All right then, brother mother. Call me brother, don't call me mother. After some persuasion, Chu Kuangren finally corrected the immortal godly phoenix's way of addressing him. All right, let's go back to the Black Heaven sect. Where's the Black Heaven sect? Just follow me. Suddenly, Chu Kuangren looked at the godly phoenix with a hint of hope in his eyes. Godly phoenix, can we make a deal? Go ahead, brother. Can I ride on you for a while? Chu Kuangren suddenly remembered that some experts in the cultivation world often had mounts, such as cranes, tigers, lions, and so on. He might as well get himself a mount and try it out. What kind of mount could be more eye-catching than the godly phoenix? Of course. The godly phoenix lowered its body and gestured for Chu Kuangren to get on. Divine beasts were born with noble horoscopes, and most of them were rebellious. Even the emperors of old would find it difficult to capture a divine beast as a mount. However, to the godly phoenix, Chu Kuangren was different. Although she called him brother, she treated him as her mother. It was a piece of cake for her mother to ride her. Chu Kuangren excitedly jumped onto the godly phoenix's back. It was furry, warm, and more comfortable than sitting on an electric blanket in winter. Hold on tight, brother. The godly phoenix said before it flapped its wings and flew into the sky. Inside the Black Heaven sect, various forces had arrived. They were all invited by Honorable Xianxia to attend the ceremony. Among them were the various sage orthodoxies and honorable orthodoxies of the Azure Dragon domain. All of them were reputable figures. Before the ceremony, the godly phoenix's birth and the myriad bird worship phenomenon had shocked many people at the scene. For a moment, everyone was discussing this matter. However, compared to that, Honorable Xianxia's expression was not so good as he cursed at the communication compass. Kuangren, today is the day you take over. Everyone from the sage orthodoxies is here, so where have you been? Hurry up and come back. Honorable teacher, I'm in a hurry to attend to something urgent. Can you hold on for a while? Chu Kuangren said. Honorable Xianxia turned off the communication compass and muttered, This B** starred is getting more and more troublesome. Chapter 192. Inside the longevity hall of the Black Heaven sect. Elder Ruyan and the others were pacing back and forth anxiously. When they saw Honorable Xianxia hang up the compass, they quickly went up to him. How is it? Is Kuangren back yet? Soon. He's on his way. But we can't keep the guests waiting outside, can we? Then what should we do? It was Honorable Xianxia's first time encountering such a situation. Sect leader, you're one of the main characters in this inauguration ceremony. Why are you asking us what to do? Hurry up and hold them off. Elder Ruyan said helplessly. Yeah, just say some pleasantries. Hold on until the lead disciple returns. Honorable Xianxia was pushed out of the hall. Outside the hall, a group of cultivators who were there to witness the ceremony gathered together. The ones sitting at the front were the representatives of the various sage orthodoxies. For example, the Royal Azure Dynasty and the School of White Lotus. Below them were the various honorable orthodoxies of the Azure Dragon domain. Most of them were affiliated with the Black Heaven sect. At this time, everyone was chatting and laughing. What do you guys think? I wonder which virtuous person will be able to obtain the godly phoenix's appearance this time. One of the sage orthodoxy's representatives said. At that, the crowd started to discuss among themselves. The appearance of the godly phoenix is the first in hundreds of thousands of years. This era of great battles is just too exciting. I'm afraid there are only a few in this world who are worthy of this divine beast. Whoever can obtain it will be a blessing in disguise. Indeed. A few honorable supremes were discussing. Meanwhile, the sky prides at the scene were extremely excited. They all hoped that they could obtain the godly phoenix and dominate this era. If I can obtain the godly phoenix, I won't have to suffer so much under Chu Kuangren. Ao Chang from the sacred lands of serene wisdom thought to himself. There were many who had the same thought as Ao Chang. When I return, I must send someone to investigate. I must find a way to control this divine beast. Yuan Hong from the Dharma sect thought. Chu Kuangren, once I get my hands on that divine beast, I don't believe I'll always be suppressed by you. Lin Beishan's eyes lit up. That's not right. Isn't this the inauguration ceremony? Why hasn't it started yet? The representative from the sacred lands of serene wisdom said unhappily. As soon as he said that, everyone felt that something was wrong. It's already late in the morning. Why hasn't it started yet? Do you really think sunbathing here is fun? What's wrong with the Black Heaven sect? Are they trying to mess with us? Just as the crowd was dissatisfied, Honorable Xianxia walked out. Everyone turned their gazes over. Honorable Xianxia, why hasn't the inauguration ceremony started yet? Yeah, where's Chu Kuangren now? Facing a quasi-sage, everyone's tone was much more relaxed. Ahem, before I pass on my position, I have a few words to say. As you all know, I've been in charge of the Black Heaven sect for more than 1,000 years. I've been working hard all these years, and 800 years ago, I fought in the North Sea with a single sword. Honorable Xianxia began to recount some of the things that had happened during his tenure as the sect leader over the years. No one disturbed him. After all, it was very normal for him to give a speech to reminisce about the past. 1 hour, 2 hours, 1.5 hours passed. Impatience gradually appeared on everyone's faces. All he had to do was give a speech and say a few words. What was the meaning of this non-stop speech? They were here to watch the ceremony, not to listen to him brag about himself. If they had the time, wouldn't it be better for them to go to the tea house and listen to a storyteller? Honorable Xianxia. At that moment, a Daoist from the Taishu temple interrupted Honorable Xianxia and said, I wonder if the inauguration ceremony can start now. Let me finish talking about my battle with the nine-headed Honorable One 300 years ago. Back then, the nine-headed Honorable One was also very famous. Everyone wanted to cry but no tears came out. How much longer was this going to take? The sky was going to turn dark if this went on. Look, what's that? At that moment, someone in the crowd exclaimed. In the distant sky, a ball of red light swept over. Wherever it passed, the clouds were dyed a magnificent crimson. Upon closer inspection, that red light was actually a noble and gorgeous godly phoenix. The godly phoenix's head glowed brightly, and as it flapped its wings, there was a mysterious Daoist rhyme that flowed with auspicious light. It was a divine beast that was on full display. It's the godly phoenix. Could this be the godly phoenix that was born not long ago? But why would it appear here? So this is a divine beast? It's too extraordinary. Compared to it, the other beasts are not even worth mentioning. Heavens, this divine beast is indeed a divine beast. Seeing this godly phoenix, everyone present was amazed. As for some of the honorable supremes and sky prides, they could not sit still anymore. This was a divine beast. If they could tame it, not only would it be of great help to them, but it could also enhance the fate of an orthodoxy. The godly phoenix's life chart was noble, it was definitely possible. Honorable Xianxia stopped talking and looked at the godly phoenix solemnly. Wait a minute, there seems to be someone on the godly phoenix? One of the honorable supremes said in an uncertain tone. When the others heard this, they could not believe it. Idiot, the godly phoenix is a divine beast with a noble life chart. How could it allow others to sit on its back? That's right, don't treat the godly phoenix as a mount. Since ancient times, only immortals have been able to use divine beasts as mounts. Even the great emperors of old have never heard of anyone having a divine beast as a mount. No, it looks like there really is someone. As the godly phoenix approached, everyone gasped when they saw that there was indeed a figure standing on the godly phoenix's back. F***ck me. There's really someone there? Heavens, who would have the ability to tame a godly phoenix as a mount? Could it be an immortal that has descended into the mortal realm? Why does this person look so familiar? It's Chu Kuangren. F***ck, it's really him. As the godly phoenix approached the Black Heaven sect, everyone could finally see the figure on the godly phoenix's back. It was Chu Kuangren, who was dressed in white. The godly phoenix was extremely noble, and Chu Kuangren's white robe was peerless. The combination of the two created a huge impact on the crowd. At that moment, Chu Kuangren really looked like an immortal that had descended into the mortal realm. When they arrived above the Black Heaven sect, Chu Kuangren leaped down from the godly phoenix's back and stood in front of the crowd with a smile on his face. At that moment, everyone looked at him with their mouths agape. Even Honorable Xianxia was no exception. Greetings, fellow Daoists. Chu Kuangren was the first to speak, snapping everyone back to their senses. Then, countless people started to discuss among themselves. F***ck me, he's riding a godly phoenix. This Chu Kuangren is just too cool. How did he do it? This godly phoenix has only been born for a short period of time. We haven't even started looking for it yet, but he's already tamed it. This is just too much of a shock. A divine beast has recognized its master. This Chu Kuangren's luck is just too strong. Meanwhile, sky prides like Yuanhong, Gu Chang'e, and Ao Chang were even more shaken. They looked at Chu Kuangren as if they were about to cry. Just a second ago, they were still thinking about how to find and tame the godly phoenix when they returned. The next second, Chu Kuangren was riding the godly phoenix right in front of them. Was there anything more shocking than this? This Chu Kuangren can't really be an immortal, can he? Why does he get all the benefits? You're tuning into the Carefree Valley YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.